We're gonna go ahead and get started. I appreciate everyone joining us for our April 2022 agenda briefing. We are now 4 months into the year, calendar year, and 4 months till we start a new year, calendar year for our town. So lots happening, and appreciate everyone's attendance. I will now go ahead and call this meeting to order. Council, you have your packets.
Thank you.
And agenda. Ask if there are any adjustments to the agenda. Mr. Wyatt, any adjustments?
None from staff, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'll ask for a motion that we adopt our agenda for tonight as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion is made, receive the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. We'll move on down to general business. I'll start with council, as always, and I'll start with Mr. Now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I'd just like to wish all our citizens Good Friday, healthy, happy Easter. And also, one of the things that maybe I can address this towards our town manager. I was wondering if we could see a monthly report on code enforcement on what's going on, because I was explaining not so much the phone calls at home. It's when I run into somebody that knows I'm a town councilman at Food Lion, or I'm getting gas, or they just know that. And there are some eyesores in the town that, number one, as a councilman, I don't know if they're being addressed. And number two, are they being checked out by our code enforcement guy? Again, back from the police background, and that's not code enforcement, but to take on these things, you gotta be proactive. You just can't, an eyesore is not gonna come and smash you right in the head. You're gonna, oh, okay, let me report this. I mean, if you see something, say something almost. So I'd like to possibly see, for the time being, when I say the time being, until maybe it gets taken care of a little expeditious, a monthly report on infractions within our code enforcement.
If I may?
Yes, sir.
We actually discussed this morning at the staff meeting, going back to, I've spoke with all of council in an email, and we have addressed not just this particular topic that you bring up, Councilman Now. First of all, let me address that specifically. I think council should get that information and more. And we discussed this morning in a staff meeting how best to not only serve council in getting that information specific to code enforcement, but some other details, but also the citizens of the town to get some of this information as well. And not this week, but next month's meeting, we intend on changing up how we as staff present some things to you all. And what we hope to do is lay out a situation to where if you all have specific questions, that we will have that from me to you all in a Monday email. And then on Thursday, each department head will present a report that basically is just a 1 to 2 minute overview of any changes that has occurred. It will not be, it's not intended to be a situation to where it will be a question and answer back and forth to engage with council or the citizens. But if citizens or council has any specific questions, we certainly would like to address those, whether it be me as the manager or the department head can address those. But for this here specifically, I certainly hear you, and we as staff have engaged and have been engaging, and we certainly want to provide you the information for all of council or the citizens themselves. If there's anything else that we could be more specific on, we certainly want to do that. But we have been addressing numerous code things, and I think to echo your point, that if we could be more transparent as we approach the budget session, we have discussed previously, going back to Mayor Pro Tem Hinkle's comments, when that position was created, it was more reactive. Then council suggested that they be proactive and go out and look for violations. By its contract, it was still reactive as the individual comes to town 1 day a week. We as staff have kept him quite busy dealing with some of those. And we have discussed, once Lynn Hare was hired, whether or not that position needed to share duties in one of the full-time slots that's assigned to her department going forward. But by documentation of a more accurate report, I think that would then allow me and you all to determine whether or not that should continue to be a contracted service or not. So thank you for bringing it up, and it will certainly give us more information going forward.
Thank you, yeah, because sometimes it does get a little frustrating when you're going past the same stuff and structures haven't moved and dumpsters haven't been, fenced off, so it's, and it's not that was brought up last month, it's months and months.
Yes.
Thank you. The other thing I had, I guess it's possible code enforcement, but maybe just not knowing the right thing. We got some political signs from the depot all the way to the fairgrounds that are on our greenway.
I'm certainly not aware of those. I will say this, Saturday, Chief Watson made me aware of some that appeared Saturday, and I came out Saturday afternoon personally and picked all of those up that was on our greenway that I was aware of. If any has appeared today, I know Public Works and Chip Smith, our Parks and Rec Director, has made their passage that way. So if they've appeared on our greenway and we didn't get them, it was certainly an oversight because...
After the meeting, I'll just kind of tell you where I see them.
Sure.
Other than that, again, wish everyone a happy, all our citizens a happy Easter.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Harris?
Thank you.
The only
Yes,
thing I
sir.
really had was, with all the development going on, and I made a Chief Watson aware the other day that I've seen a tractor trailer with the big old concrete thing for manholes, sewer manholes, or one of these developments, go down Rumpel Street, cutting through our town streets versus the state roads, and using that route to get to their development they're working on. And I saw the other day, two cement trucks. We're using that route, which is, those are ones that we have to repair all those roads. And so I asked him to, if he sees them, remind them they're supposed to stay on the state road, till they get to that development, turn in there. They'll cut through our housing developments for shortcuts.
Unfortunately, and we have checked, and we've had several complaints, and I'll use some streets in Englewood as an example. Unfortunately, we can't restrict their flow, ingress or egress through those neighborhoods when they're doing this. I certainly hear you, and we can try some different things to discourage from using those neighborhoods. But as Colonial Crossing is one neighborhood that I will use as an example, as it is being built out and or used, the number one complaint that we had from neighbors in that particular neighborhood was logging trucks, because those usually are not as kept of a type truck or as some of the others. But we had numerous complaints, and we contacted the Motor Carrier Division of the North Carolina Highway Patrol to kind of increase their patrols. And you're certainly correct in that those neighborhood streets like that are normally not built to handle the capacity and the weight structure of concrete trucks and certainly logging trucks. And we would do everything in our potential to encourage them use the other highways.
Yeah, I just kind of let the chief know where, because I was thinking those are streets we have repaired
Yes, sir?
instead of the state roads, and they need to go to state roads so they turn off to go to our development. It may be off our roads, but that was a concern.
Certainly, correct.
And the only other thing I wanted to point is, it was kind of nice to see that staff is doing such a good job of getting events started back. You know, we've seen, we had the thing of the, your coffee place the other day, the signing. We've got something this coming week with Easter egg hunt. So we're starting to see, the run that our town is starting to get engaged with people again. And I think that's a good sign. That hopefully this next COVID stream coming through doesn't affect it.
I echo your sentiments, yes, sir.
That's all I have.
Thank you. I'm gonna skip for a minute.
I have nothing right now.
Okay. Ms. Harris?
I don't have much. I just, this is Autism Awareness Month, and I was glad to attend the Last Chance Prom, which the proceeds went to the Autism Society of North Carolina. I enjoyed that, and thank you, Chip, and whoever else helped to put that on. Is that the same tie?
No, but I'm wearing purple.
So that was a great event, and again, I echo what George said. I'm glad to see so many events going on again now and getting the town back involved again. That's all I have.
Mr. Hodgson?
Likewise, I'm very happy to see the events going on, opening up some things to get the community together, and I think it's a great thing for our kids to be able to get out, engage in the community, engage with the town and the staff. So I think that's wonderful. Did have a good time at the grand opening the other day. It's good to see some of y'all there, and also recently, of course, had the chance to come and take part in Chief Watson's community meeting that you put together. I think it was great. I'd love for it to be something that's done regularly, just to have that front facing to the community. Hey, come, we're be open, be transparent, and hopefully we can get the attendance up, and I think it'll be a great thing for our community moving forward. So thank you for organizing that.
Very welcome.
Anything?
Well, I was just going to follow up saying to George's comment, we did years and years ago, we had that same problem. We had a problem of overcapacity trucks on our streets. They were literally tearing them up. And we did pass an ordinance at the time to try and prevent that. And being public streets, we were very limited by state law what we could do. And basically, we tried to prevent from using neighborhood streets as cut-through, if you will. It worked for a little while. But again, as the manager says, we are limited, we can't prevent it. And if they, as long as they are going through a neighborhood to get to somewhere, and not just using it as a cut through. Now, again, if we're using Rumpel to get, say, over to Columbia Crossing, then you can stop it and under our ordinance citing, way the ordinance is set up.
Brookside.
Right, exactly. But if they're using a town street and going directly from that town street to a destination, whether it's a cement truck, logging truck, or what have you, we were very limited. We couldn't just say, no, you can't do that.
I just remember all the trouble we went through getting it paved and.
Exactly.
And said torn up here.
Yeah.
It was not even a development in that area, it's development somewhere else, and they should be following a state route.
Exactly.
To get there.
It's frustrating, you're right. And
Fortunately, twice a day, we put a real stop to traffic anyhow.
Right.
We control it on Rumpel Street with, twice a day.
Yeah, but it's kind of like, we see places where, down here at the Walgreens intersection, we like to put up a traffic signal, but, you're limited to what you have to state. And again, even though it's our street, we still have state law that we can't just close it off and say, nothing over, 40,000 or 50,000, whatever it is, so. Again, we're limited but again, we have had this problem before, it's not new. And I don't even know if that ordinance is still in effect, it goes way back. But I understand and I do applaud what we're gonna be discussing coming up. At least we're gonna try and hold some of these trucks responsible for the debris they leave out in the streets.
Yeah, Doug and I drove around one
Yeah.
day, it was like
Yeah.
At the rain, it was a mess.
Yes, yeah, yeah. I look forward to getting that under control, but, very much, if they're using neighborhood streets as just cut-throughs, then, you know, whatever we need to do from a local standpoint to prevent it, I agree, because those things will damage our streets in a heartbeat. We know people like that, unfortunately, sometimes, it's, you know, whatever they can do the fastest and easiest for them, and not necessarily what's in the best interest of the town and its assets.
Yeah, I also,
That's one of
as
those.
y'all know, there's an issue, not outside this, but I followed a truck down that came off of exit 42, coming north, came off that exit, and I ended up getting behind because I've been to Lowe's, and he came down, hit Mountain Road, I guess it's cutting that way to 40 versus staying on the interstate. He came off the interstate, came through here. So we talk about this warehouse up here, but they're literally cutting it around, avoiding because of such many wrecks and stuff up around the state for it. They're cutting through here to get to Interstate 40.
Due to the construction and/or accidents that is occurring at 77 in Statesville, their GPS is doing that to them.
That is, because I thought, wow, he's cutting completely around the interstate. You know. I remember Paul Bryant, when we talked about this warehouse there one time, he made a comment, there's no way a trucker would go down that 2-lane road when they can just go here and hit the interstate and go around. I thought,
If
that would change.
the GPS systems are so quick now that they'll even tell you if there's a trooper has somebody stopped on the interstate, well, be prepared to slow down for that. So if there's delays up there because of that, yes, it's telling them to get off and take the 2-lane road. Otherwise, they would stay that way. So as soon as the construction's over and it's back to normal traffic flow, then we shouldn't have those issues.
That's what I'm thinking too.
There was multiple times in the past few weeks where 77 North heading was a parking lot. I mean, they weren't moving at all.
I don't think this was a record. I mean, it's just, they just cut through. I thought, it was kind of odd, because I followed that truck, and then, for, I forget whatever reason, I was going up the road, I drove up to see where he went, and he turned off Mountain Road. I thought,
And that's even been discussion at the regional level, and before Doc mismanages funds, and can't get anything done now, they were looking at Old Mountain Road because they realize as it develops down in this area, especially starting in 45, when that was going to be commercial at one time, and it's been back and forth, and now I think it's a mix of everything, but at any rate, they realize that, you know, trucks are coming there, and they could use, you know, come in on Murdoch Road and take Old Mountain Road out and kind of get around traffic going through Statesville, and even being on interstate, they felt like that'd be a shortcut from them and going on. So there had been discussions about, you know, improving Old Mountain Road, but gosh knows, my grandkids
I
probably.
hope we get that over-designed interchange up here at 4077, you know, for some future big city of the Charlotte level. Maybe we can get this traffic going through it like it's supposed to.
I think one thing, just about the cutting through the residential streets, if somebody's coming north, like a tractor trailer on Main Street, and say the destination's off of Wagner, one of those neighborhoods, they can't make that left turn if they're pulling a trailer without hitting the cars waiting on Wagner. So that's leading them to go down Rumpel or go up and go down, you know, Talley Street or something, depending on their destination, because they don't have a way to get there because of not being able to turn left with a trailer from Maine to Wagner without having a collision. So we're kind of, in some ways, limited on how much we can push them another way.
And vice versa, if you're coming up Wagner and you need to turn right onto Main Street to get back to,
You know, you can't do that with a
you
trailer.
can't swing that right. I mean, around Pat's place, and whatever, Southern Street, you can't turn that right with the big trucks.
Well, there's even signage there, right, saying
Yeah.
the trucks, no right turn.
The concrete trucks are the ones that really, you know, the logging trucks, yes, but the concrete trucks, you see more often, and those are the ones that can really damage city streets, you know. That situation was even when I was going up to Statesville, they had that problem up there with the concrete truck on city streets.
Anything else? So that I don't repeat anything, again, I was gonna bring up some of the actual positive things I've seen in terms of enforcement. I came down north, and there were some things there over the years that I, been there forever, and whether or not our code enforcement has interacted, but it looked good. And so also had some really good positive comments even on our house over here, and people saying how good it looked, and knowing that some work's going on there. And so again, really, positive things that I think are happening, and regret I wasn't able to be here for the My Coffee place the other day, but I'll make sure I give my regards to Nina and the team. But again, I appreciate folks starting to engage, as was already stated. I think it's important that we again try to get people out and do some things in our community. Again, I think it's very positive. Lastly, I just wanted to caution Ms. Harris, just be careful who you take photos with. Sometimes I know it can be challenging. It's all good. But no, I appreciate members of council also taking the time to go out and engage in the community. You are representatives of the community, and so it's positive. If I can't be there, or Mayor Hinkle can't, Mayor Pro Tem Hinkle can't be there, it's great to see you supporting the staff and being out in the community. So, I personally want to say thank you for doing that and continuing that effort. With that, I'll also just mention that CRTPO has continued to meet somewhat virtually, but they're also starting to meet in person. So hopefully we'll start to make some time to get down to Charlotte to meet with our colleagues on some of these transportation issues. So I know we've had some wins, and so at least brought up some of the work that our planning team has done, and appreciate all the work that you all have done to represent Troutman and the broader community. I think Andrew's name has come up a couple of times, and well respected, and appreciate your efforts for the more broader community, but very specifically for Troutman. So thank you for that on bike pads and other things. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Wyatt for any staff comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Echo a couple things you said, Mr. Mayor, and also staff. A couple positives that we have done, and I will touch base on some code enforcement things. Several folks in Inglewood reached out to us over a year ago, one about an abandoned house where unfortunately the homeowner had passed away inside the home. The property, there was no family member to continue taking care of the property. For whatever reason, the mortgage company continues to pay the property taxes, but they've not went through the process of seizing or foreclosing on the property. But yet that burden has fell on town staff and public works to maintain. We have filed the appropriate liens. I have been in contact with an attorney to find out what we need to do to go through the process of taking care of that property. There's a couple lots in a street over that has become the proverbial dumping grounds in the community. Neighbors tend to think that if it's things I don't need on my property, I can just dump it on somebody else's property, which unfortunately is not the case. But we are finding out, again, through Public Works, that falls back on them, how to pick that up, and we will be and have followed through with issues there. There's some tax issues with that property in the IRS, but then again, as part of our good neighbor policies, as Mayor Pro Tem can recall, we still need to do our town responsibilities there. We will be following up as far as liens goes on that property as well as we continue to clean it up. Around the corner, we have followed up one of the items this month, as we had reached an agreement with Miracle Homes that one of the four homes being used as homes for minor children should be closed up by the end of this month. We have asked them to identify for us which one of the four homes that will be. Around the corner from that is one of the homes that was being used commercially for numerous years as a towing business. It has been remediated. It has been, and the business owner there passed away a little over a year ago, but the business still seemed to exist even though he had passed away. But that has been remediated. The property has been sold, and the property next to it has also been sold. So that part of that community has been cleaned up. We have numerous other violations in that community that have been pointed out to code enforcement that are also being taken care of. There was a home on Tally Street that several of you all and us had numerous complaints about. It has also been remediated. We're in the process of filing our liens on that. The lot directly behind it off of Rough and Loop, it has also been remediated. The debris that was on it has also been cleaned. The chips off of that where the tree, the property owner had that done. The chips off of that fallen tree have been deposited down here next to the dog park and will be spread out shortly and used for the benefit of the citizens and those that visit the park. So we're excited about that. Also, our own town properties that we purchased on Wagner Street, give you updates on those. We, Public Works, went in and cleaned up as some citizens had complained about the sidewalk areas there and pedestrians being able to walk on those safely. It is one of our ordinances about sidewalks in town, and property owners actually have a responsibility to clean up their own yard in front of or near a sidewalk. The town went in and made sure our sidewalk areas were clean and brushed back. Adam can tell you one area of the sidewalk was about 50% overgrown there because the yard kind of just shifted out into the sidewalk area, but they got it put back. In addition to cleaning up the sidewalk areas that should legally be done, we also had the property cleaned up and a new roof was put on the one structure, which the one was built in 1880 at 160, I believe is the address there. New tenant should be there this week. The next one at 170, a new roof will be going in there tomorrow. And both of those properties are looking well. We have bids at the building that we have on Wagner Street that we had tried earnestly last year to get done. We have an architect, an engineer to meet with Adam and I to look at it, and they seem to think that they can help us get things done there as needed, and we have bids that should be coming in shortly for that. Our houses next door that you all will be considering on your agendas to change the zoning on, we have bids coming in to the work scheduled to move forward with that, assuming you all decide to grant us the rezoning change for that. That's all the update I have on the properties. I would like to echo Council Lady Harris's comments about the dance and second chance prom. Our Park and Rec Director Chip Smith did, but again, as most of our projects in the town to occur, that event would not have been successful without his work, but also a list of other town employees. Council Lady Harris and I did make the best picture of the night there, contrary to what the mayor implied.
I did not imply. I'm sure she took plenty of pictures that night.
But of course,
Mr. Manager, I did my job and cleaned up after him with
but
my.
of course, our chief did pat his gun and said, wait a minute, He and his spouse also took a great picture, as did our Public Works Director and his spouse take a great picture. But we had a lot of happy couples that night, and Chip had a wonderful thank you card from Deborah Lester earlier, who thanked us for such a wonderful event that the town put on. And for the first one, there were a lot of happy people there, and I do want to thank everybody that participated at that event. As with everything, we had several staff to show up on their own time and of course participate. A nice lady helped me in my duties that night as a volunteer. And somebody made some reference about all of us getting paid, and no. And for the record, Chip was the only paid employee there, as he should have been paid for his duties. But what people don't understand is his salaried position. He was on about his 70th hour that week. And a lot of people also don't realize that. So, and then he came back and worked on Sunday as well. So I do appreciate him and the rest of staff very much for that. And even this past weekend, we had a lot of people come out when we do events. It takes a lot of people to make them happen. And as several of you all said, I've attended over 200 events when I went back through my calendar to look at things in various places for ribbon cuttings and grand openings, and it's not normal that you have staff to come from any town, city, or county government. It's not normal that you have staff that will come on their own time to do events, and then to do what we did this weekend with other events that are scheduled. I'm very thankful of our staff to do what they did. I will be following up with some communications with more about that to you all, and we'll be happy to discuss that more in depth later. All that being said, if y'all have any questions about anything I said, I certainly will be happy to respond. Otherwise, we will go to our next item on the agenda, and that is our land use map.
I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
Just on the town-owned properties. I remember I wasn't the only one that expressed interest in it, but could we get a list of all the properties that are owned by the town?
Can we get one?
Yes.
Sure. There's 28, I believe, off the top of my head, but we certainly can.
Good, thank you.
It's as simple as a click to Iredell County GIS, and here they are. Anything else?
Just going to add, 170 address, the roof's going to be put on next several days. Do we have a tenant when that's completed, or we have one, or?
There is one in there currently,
Okay.
and they will not be moved. It will not be bothered. Hopefully, they'll go to work in the morning and come back to a new roof.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
But you said there's a new one moving into the other house.
Ironically, when the town decided to purchase those properties, the tenant that was in 170 was told by their former landlord to get out. So the new tenant that we are getting was that tenant that was in 170. And they're excited to be back to 160.
Worked out good.
To 160. Their rent went up, but they're excited to be back to the house next door.
Other questions for Mr. White? Let's move on to the other staff items.
Yes, sir. The land use map. Lynn and I had discussed, if you all will recall, the town basically comes up every 5 years to revisit what our current land use map is. And due to the exponential growth that has been occurring, and of course the latest project that has gotten to us, of which I would like to go ahead and address at this time. Due to the size of that latest project, we have asked and discussed, as you all are aware of previous, that we want the community to try to be as informed as possible, and even though we have public meetings they can attend, even though we have a web page they can certainly read, and even though we have a process to go through with planning and zoning and all of that, some still prefer to get their information based off of gossip and or whoever says what. So what we have tried to do is engage with Iredell Free News, Statesville Record and Landmark, and other news sources to put out some fact-based information. And Lynn just this past week met with Mike Furman and gave a video at the Children's Hope Alliance property, and that should be coming out later this week to discuss that process a little bit about that particular project. Councilman George Harris and I were on the radio this past week and kind of explained that project, and not to take the place of that, but to simplify, if I may, for some of the citizens that have approached me about it, it was as simple as saying, why is Troutman doing this? Why is Troutman doing that? And for us, it's not Troutman is or was not doing anything. That property was not in our town limits, and the property owners chose to sell their property. Somebody chose to purchase that property. What Troutman's involvement as far as the staff and as far as you all as elected officials was as simple as it is next to our contiguous city limits, which means by statutes, we have the right to decide if we want the project to be in our town limits under what zoning and what conditions we want to review the project. We get to decide, in a sense, what goes in our front door, because that would be an extension of our front door. If, for whatever reason, council decides we don't want that, then because of where that particular 800-ish acre parcel is, then Statesville then would get the option of deciding what goes on our front door. And as I had said on social media, it's not a question in reality of will the property to be developed. It will be a question of what town or city limits it goes in. That don't change what does the transportation look like. DOT will still be involved. It just decides in what town or city limits it goes in, period. And who controls what happens in our front door. And that's as simple as that. It don't mean, as some has accused, that there's a backroom deal already decided. It does mean what normally happens in any project this size. When these people decided that they wanted to sell, they, meaning Children's Hope Alliance, had told all of these people, hey, you might want to talk to Troutman, you might want to talk to Statesville, you might want to talk to Iredell County. Most of those developers did, and they contacted staff and said, here's a potential plan we have, do you like it or do you not? As Lynn Hare, our planning director, and Andrew can tell you, some of those, we said, hey, our current plan is this for that area. This project may fly. We can't answer for council. We can't answer for planning and zoning, but we get the census or the feel this may fly. But there was a couple we said, no, that probably is not going to fly. And that's based off of our jobs and based off of our experience and expertise. That's one reason why it brings us back to this land use plan and land use map update. And Lynn and I discussing and talking, we feel that it is certainly time that you all consider, instead of waiting a whole nother year to start the process, that you all would want to go ahead and consider updating this map and this plan so that we get a quicker jump instead of waiting a whole nother year, just because of how rapid and how quickly things have been moving. This allows us to get a quicker feel for things going forward, even though this project is looming over here in the clouds. Maybe it flies, maybe it don't. It still could certainly be discussed for one of those things. Just like everybody's plans, that's one of the things we need to look at, in our opinion, and encourage you all to look at. The last plan was done, former council member Paul Bryant was on there. I have spoke to Mr. Bryant to see if he would consider serving. Leighton Getzinger, who was a planning board chair at the time, I have not spoke to Leighton specifically about it. We certainly have other options. We wanted to bring it up for discussion today at the agenda session to simply plant the seed and find out from you all, should you as individuals have people you would like to talk to and ask, and or if we as staff should continue talking to people and then see if next month it would be appropriate time to go ahead with this discussion further, to go ahead and have a committee in place. I'd be glad to answer any questions or discuss further if you like.
I would just make a comment that I did talk, Paul Bryant talked to me here a while back about this land use thing, and he would more than gladly serve on that. He'd like to be on there. He was on the one before, and he said, you know, he called and asked what we were doing, why we were going, you know, ahead of time. And I was telling him about the barium issue and some of the other properties that we've, you know, changed, and, you know, they don't meet there. You know, we haven't updated the land use map of those properties, and he said he would like to very much be on there. And he also brought the question is, will we need to upgrade the strategic plan on the back end of that?
I certainly think that would be a good idea.
And I said that I would recommend him as a good source because he was on there, he was the planning coordinator from the staff, from the council for a couple of years and has a lot of interest in it. So I think he'd be a good choice and indicated he would like to be there.
Mr. No.
I also did speak with ex-councilman Bryant and was well assured by him that he'd be an asset to that committee. But my question would be, how many members kind of are we talking about? And are we talking about also people from the ETJ going to be on this committee?
I certainly think we would be foolish not to have. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, I mean, I think we were just recommending that there at least be one elected official on there and a couple members from the ETJ, absolutely. And then I think it's also important that.
and the rest, town of Troutman residents.
And really that number's up to you guys, however many people you would like to serve on that board or committee, excuse me. We were also looking at having a couple, you know, at least one planning board member on there. But these were just suggestions. So anything you feel like there's more than one person on the planning board you'd like to serve, that's completely at your discretion.
But with Mr. Bryant being an ex-councilman and he was involved with this plan 5 years ago or longer, I think he'd be a great asset. And he's a town resident also, so he's got an interest of the decision that goes on.
And as Lynn said, it's certainly up to you all's discretion whether you have 3 or whether you have 23. That's certainly up to you all. The only caveat I would say is be careful of whom you appoint. If it's somebody you have to re-educate as to the whole process, then that in itself can take months away from the purpose of the committee, because then you're having to educate a lot of people that don't understand the process. You certainly can and probably should have somebody that don't know anything about the process, because that just absolutely adds credence to it. But you can't, in my opinion, have the majority of people on there that don't know anything about it, because then it gets weighted by people that you're going to have to educate to that process. But you certainly can and should have a few that don't know anything about it at all. But if you have more people there that have at least participated, whether it be previous planning and zoning board members, previous council members, there absolutely needs to be at least 1, if not 2 current council members on there, 1 or 2 current planning and zoning board members on there, 1 or 2 current board of adjustment members on there. Certainly somebody that's involved in the process. I certainly think that would be advantageous. A planning and staff member, certainly. I think that helps expedite the process. But if you do get a lot of novices involved, then I think we would be in trouble.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think, like you guys said, you know, having former Councilmember Bryant, if Mr. Getzinger's, you know, interested, you know, I think having that knowledge, you know, somebody, even just the simple fact, strip it down, they've been through the process. I think that's invaluable. But I think having that fresh mix, I think is a great idea. You know, it's our town has changed since the last time we went through this, you know, so I think that board needs to reflect that. But I would be cognizant or maybe aware of, maybe looking at some more of a cap. You know, like, I think the ratios are great the way that you suggested them. You know, of course, clearly, we're gonna be capped at 2 council members, so on and so forth. But when we're looking at the residents, you know, like you said, 20 people, we're not gonna get anything
Like
done.
the stakeholders group or the steering committee, I agree, you don't want that to be too large of a group. But one other thing I suggest, and that I've seen work well in other places, is to have a stakeholders group, where you may have that made up of your business owners in downtown. And you may invite them in to look at the map and critique it and feel like they're a part of it, excuse me, but they're not sitting in on those meetings monthly. So I found that that works well, where you can involve more people.
I thought that was a really good idea, just take, I was looking at your list, and then the timeline is kind of an aggressive, so that you don't get bogged down like I remember the strategic plan, and when we did the UDO, it was like, we went through the UDOs, and it kept dragging on, and then we couldn't get to the end of it for a while, and we got stuck, and I like this timeline, so I thought you had a really good plan. And the stakeholders, I thought was a really good move.
Well,
I found that works
I think 2 things, really, just from a council perspective, if folks are agreeable, well, 3 things. One is, if we're agreeable to giving staff the direction to start to move forward with this land use plan rather than waiting a year. Is anybody objectionable to that? Okay. I guess the second part of what we need to do is to delegate 2 members of this council, or at least 1 to 2. I would recommend that at least be 2 members rather than just 1 to participate on this initial steering committee. I'll accept any volunteers.
I would love to do it.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I like,
All right. So, got Mr. Oxer, Mr. Harris, anybody else object or want to participate? Okay. So that's number 2. I guess number 3 is to give direction on how large the immediate steering committee is. Again, I would like to leave it up to staff to delegate any additional committees, and I think it's important, and really what we've done in the past is to get as many stakeholders involved in the process. I don't want that to be council. I think you all can handle how you develop that going forward. But I think on that immediate steering committee, giving some, council giving some direction on how big that committee should be, and any recommendations to provide to them, you know, anybody that you can think of. So, is there a number or a cap, or heard a couple of things, how big that initial steering committee should be? Now, I like an odd number just for the sake of the decision rights and how you do that, but
you come with the advisory committee that they've got set up.
yeah.
I think the numbers they've got there is probably pretty good. I mean, I support that group as a good cycle of people.
That's 8, so if you add that second elected official, that's 9, that's the odd number.
That's the odd number.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, so we're at 9. Okay.
I mean, is this a situation, just an idea, where once we, you know, say, yes, we're moving forward with this is gonna be a 2022, you know, item for us as a town? I mean, should we somewhat gauge the desire to participate from the subgroups of the town residents and ETJ residents?
Again, I think that's a,
Or do we need, just a general
Yeah.
question, or do we need to set that number today?
I would recommend we set that number today so
Okay.
we move forward. Otherwise, we'll might take us a while to
Gotcha.
get this going. But if we set that number, it's not a problem if we need to change it.
Okay, perfect.
Again, I think we need to keep it small as we can, keep it tight so staff can move and we don't, you know, we're not into October, November, and we're still trying to figure out the process.
If you're shooting for October, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I know we said that we're gonna set the numbers today, but is town council going to pick the planning board person? Is town council gonna pick the 4 town residents? And is town council gonna pick the 2 ETJ Because I think that's important, the town council be involved with that. We're letting our staff pick the steering and the other.
We would bring back a list for you all of people that have either contacted us or that you all have contacted and let us know of their interest. Ever how you,
Yeah, I think that would be more appropriate if they wanna come back and say, yeah, we've got a list of.
Or will be the,
Right,
council
right, right.
will be
Yeah,
the
yeah.
final decision on who
Yeah.
goes on and who
Yeah, I
don't.
agree with
That
that.
works.
Yeah,
We can-
oh yes,
absolutely.
And that's kind of how I understood
Yeah.
what staff was recommending there, what we're saying. And
Yes.
as far as numbers, don't want to get, you're gonna muddy the water if you get too many. I agree with how I understood you presented here in the paperwork. So, you know, if you need a resolution or a motion or just general
Motion would be
instructions,
great, and we'd be
you know,
good.
move ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I agree, this needs to be done, we're moving fast, this is why we're not waiting 5 to 10 years to redo a UDO. And we're not reinventing the wheel, I don't think we're going to as extensive as we did in 2018, so that's why we're shooting for an October closure date, if possible. And I like the fact that you've got an early community involvement meeting, as well as a late in the process community meeting before we wrap it up. So, you know, I like as just in general, to say without going over the details again, I like what you presented, and that is what I would ask my fellow board members or council members to adopt, and as we say, let the staff proceed.
I agree with Councilman Hinkle, but one of my questions would be, our town manager said that this is gonna be at our front door, and I totally agreed. And we're in control of this now. But is there going to be, I mean, even the smallest amount of pushback from Statesville with us going to try and claim this is ours?
statute wise, they can't.
There's nothing that, they don't have anything to stand on.
It's in our ETJ.
I know it's in our ETJ.
The entirety of the,
Yeah, the
There's a small
whole,
portion that's not, but the majority of it is.
Well, being it's all contiguous, even though we can't take part of it and say, well, we're not taking that part. All of their property's contiguous, so but as Lynn is describing, the technical answer is, when you put this halo, part of it's not in the halo, but their deed is all contiguous to us.
And the developer would be, or whoever would be asking to annex the whole properties.
Correct.
So when it came with annex, they would be, said, just do this here.
Yes.
And just a point of reference, you know, our jurisdiction goes as far north as like Skyline Drive, if you know about where I'm talking about. So, you know, we're far enough there that I think you know, we're on legal solid ground, in my opinion.
And in as straightforward as I can be, we don't have any qualms with Statesville now in our discussions of what we're trying to do or what they're trying to do. There's everything is good. What happened years ago, I think, is all water going down the creek.
And I'm glad to hear that, sir. Very glad to hear that. And your concern is, you know, is valid, but, you know, hearing our town manager's statement there, I'm comfortable.
So is there a motion to proceed?
I would so move.
Okay. Is there a second?
second.
Motion's on the floor, receive a second. Any other question or comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. You all feel you have enough direction on that?
Yes, sir.
Just like one other little piece about that development. The two pieces of property that my two brothers and I lived in will both be saved.
I orchestrated that. That honestly was one of the things we discussed after the fact. I'm like, one of you all need to tell him.
Right.
But no, if you all will allow me, Grace, please, to, instead of going by our upcoming council meeting in order, I would like to skip. Benji is here with us. He was late because he drives slow. There was an accident on I-40. But he does have another appointment this evening, and if you all will allow me to skip, as we are talking about Barium Springs, we're gonna skip to item number 15.
That's item 15 in the
Thursday's agenda. And these are talking about contracts. Gary is also here, and we, after Benji is done, part of what we've got to talk about is the contract. There as well, but Benji?
Okay, yeah, they actually go together, the two items. So, pleased to be with you all tonight and, or this afternoon. And so this item is the bid for receipt for the sewer connection for Barium Springs. Most of you all have been on this council long enough to, we've been working on this for several years. Same things changed from the very initial concept. So at this point, due to the federal funding the county was able to receive, and they worked out a plan to fund this, the vast majority of it. So the bids that were received a few weeks ago, and if you have in your package, a summary of them, is just to extend gravity sewer from Technology Drive area, on up into the campus, and go through the recreational, property of the counties, and on up to the, north end of the CHA property right there, near Calvary Church, or Calvary Chapel. So if we put a trunk line in there that could serve that, the whole campus, plus the recreation building, the county's property. That's one reason the county had interest in it. So at any rate, there's 4 bids we received, which we're pleased with that, because in today's, construction climate, you're never sure you're gonna get 3 bids.
Not to interrupt Benji, but there's one project east of us here that has been bid out 4 times, and they are yet to receive a single bid.
Right.
That one out on Amity Hill, that area?
No, it's further east, a few counties over.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so that's, we were pleased, we actually got 4 bids, and the low bid was higher than, they were definitely higher than the original estimates from a few years ago. We did an alternate bid, put in a 12-inch trunk line to 8-inch, 8-inch beam mill. So with the alternate bid, and this would help, accommodate growth with this new development which we just discussed, and any other growth in that area. So the total, including that alternate bid, was submitted by Buckeye Bridge out of Canton, that's the Asheville area, $612, $166.30. And we, West Consultants, have worked with them on numerous projects. They're not perfect, but they're very, very well qualified. We definitely recommend that you award it to them. In my letter of recommendation, it says that, and it says an award should be subject to approval by the county, which I understand they did vote to increase the budget. It was originally $500,000, now with this bid being over $600,000 plus some engineering fees and other costs, it's basically $725,000 is what they approved. And I guess I'll turn it over to Gary to talk about where, as part of the formal agreement that gets all that in writing, is that ready to?
Yeah, the county has approved it and signed it. It's a short one-page agreement that amends the prior agreement to say the county's gonna pay up to $725,667. They've approved it and signed.
I guess the proper order would be for the council to approve that amendment and then go ahead and award this contract to Buckeye Bridge.
Benji, question. I noticed where it's gonna cost us a little bit more because, I say us, the county, a little bit more, because evidently Barium Springs has not completed, adequate testing for their I&I, so we're not gonna connect on yet. But we're obviously, we're making plans to connect on sometime, but that's costing us a little extra to hold off on doing that. Is Barium, are they doing anything to check, continue to check the I&I and get that settled
Yeah,
behind?
and I'm glad you brought that up. So I called Greg Eaton on the way over here, actually, just to get the latest from him. He's the property manager with CHA. And I've been in touch with him over the past several weeks since we opened bids. So they have supposedly done more work to fix leaks in their system. And they've been putting monitors in manholes, But in the bids, we have, part of that alternate bidding is a line item that if the contractor is all finished and Troutman's not comfortable yet letting the campus hook up due to concern of leaks, then we can postpone that effort and bring the contractor back later to do it when we are comfortable. And their bid, so we had a separate bid item just for that, and that was $5,396. And the county included that in their budget, so I guess it'd be between CHA and the county who actually pays that, but it wouldn't be the town of Troutman. So that'd be like a remobilization cost to come back later and connect the buildings.
Other questions for Benji? Yeah. I mean, two things, just, from a process perspective, are we approving this tonight, or do we need to wait for Thursday?
We have it on the agenda for
So,
Thursday.
Even
Yes, sir.
on Thursday. And I'll say it again on Thursday, then, appreciate the county, working with us to make this happen. It's a huge feat, and, it really helps that overall corridor. And Mr. Watt done yeoman's work in, helping to, shed light on how we can make this work. So, I appreciate your time and efforts there, and, to see this come to fruition, and the commissioners agreeing to this project, it's a huge win for Troutman. And so, again, hopefully everyone will see those efforts. So thank you for doing that, and thank Benji and Gary for working through this process. So it does feel like it's been a long time. Yeah.
I'm going to further kudos for what the mayor just said. I agree wholeheartedly, and I'm going to further kudos you on another matter we got coming up too, because there again, it's something I've been concerned about for years, that thank goodness somebody is, or bodies are taking care of it and planning ahead on our wastewater system, so I'll leave it at that.
Yes, sir.
Want to move back to Revelation?
I think this was instead of Thursday.
You don't need him Thursday night?
No.
Okay.
He's, we've told him he didn't need to come back Thursday, so, we wanted him here to discuss it for you all's agenda meeting, and then if I misspoke, you all let us know now.
Yeah, I can be here if needed.
What-
Yeah, the purpose of being here today is to answer your question.
Yeah, we have your number. We can find you.
Take it any way you want.
All right.
Thank you.
Could I just ask about one of the scenario you outlined, where we get to the point where we're at the finish line, we're satisfied, so we choose to delay. What are the ramifications of that?
Right, so there'll be that extra cost, and we put in.
That's about that 5,000.
Yeah, about a little less than $6,000. And of course, that can't go on forever, but I think we put in there up to 6 months after they leave the site. So whatever that, they'll have like 9 months to get the whole job done. We had to build in extra time just to get the pipe. All the latest information I got from this low bidder is he thinks he can get the pipe even this month, or at least in May, which was going into bid, that wasn't the case. So
That's
that
huge.
changes every week as far as when materials can be counted on. But anyway, whether it's 6 months or 9 months or 3 months, whenever they finish and then leave, demobilize, at that point, we start a 6-month counting that we can pay that fee, and they're obligated to come back and do it. So you're right, if CHA still doesn't address this issue, even after that, then it'd be something to negotiate, or CHA just has to pay to hook themselves up later. But I'll say, preface all that with the last data we saw was much improved from the first data we saw as far as inflow and infiltration. So they wouldn't have to make a huge improvement from last time for it to be accepted. I think we'll be in good shape.
Yeah,
Be able to allow them to hook up.
At least we're moving in the right direction.
Right.
Infiltration issues on these older buildings that are be going away anyhow? But on that side of the road, not the other side?
Good question. I'm not privy to
I'm sorry, I didn't
the
hear.
plans are on the old
I was
building.
asking where most of the issues they had up there on the buildings on this side of the road, the old ones, and not the cost road they're keeping. So one phase of development will eliminate that issue.
Yeah, I don't know how things have changed with the development. Right now.
I think those are two different timelines though, right?
Yeah, a little bit of timeline, but I think most of them are these buildings that they're vacating over here.
Yes, but, well, it's about 50-50, honestly.
Okay.
The west side of the campus gravity flows over to the east side and then
Right.
flows eastward to a sand filter treatment system that discharges into Duck Creek. And of course, that's the idea, is to eliminate that, everything coming back in the Troutman system, eliminate that creek discharge.
One of the questions that I got from some residents and citizens, and really wouldn't be Benji's question to answer, but people are concerned with the post office up there. Is that the United States government's property,
That's
post
a-
office? Is that staying there?
No. The post office is owned by an individual. It is leased to the federal government. So it's
So the
not,
post office most likely is going to go away.
not necessarily,
Okay, well, that building may go away.
not necessarily.
It's not part of the sale,
Yeah,
right?
it's not.
Correct.
It's on the other side of,
So my answer was gonna be to be determined.
well,
I'll
that.
get back to you on that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was not part of the sale in that process.
Right.
It's on the other side of it.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
A little further forward.
To me, the common sense answer would be, with all that development coming up there, having their own post office, they certainly won't take
Yes.
that away.
But people in that
Yeah.
area are very concerned.
I'm sure,
About
yeah.
that, because that's the post office they use,
Right.
not
Well-
going down here.
That post office is open more hours than the one we have in Troutman.
Well, and again, to the benefit of the developer, and maybe it's a part of that conversation,
I like it.
is ensuring that there's a post office
Right,
out there. I
yeah.
mean, if you build additional residential, I mean, you're gonna have a,
I mean, I wanna see the post office.
yeah. No, I use that little post office as well, and so it's one of those where, at one point in time, we also, as a council, signed letters to send to our elected officials to ensure that we kept that post office. So at one point, they were shutting down post offices around the country, and that one came up on the list as one slated to go away. We have invested time and energy to try to ensure that we keep it. And so, again, I would, ask Lynn and Ron, as they continue to have conversations, and I too, to, restate, it'd be great to have, not just that post office, maybe it's something new and different, maybe they can entertain something else, but if nothing else, we can ensure that that one stays.
A post office stays there, whether or not, what kind of building it's in, we don't
Correct.
care.
Right.
Down on exit 42, I know a developer had approached us some time ago that they would love to see, if nothing else, just collection boxes. Not necessarily a brick and mortar building, but just collection boxes.
Just
And
one
that's-
blue box.
Yeah, and that's still been a bear, and I presume continues to be a bear, just to get that down there. So for them to lose that up there would be, I'm sure they would just be up in arms. I'm talking about future development as well as existing folks there, so.
Yeah, I would rather see it expanded.
Yeah. So that's why I say just common sense, I would think that would
Yeah.
certainly be left there, would not go away.
And that was part of the issue when we were sending letters, they were, trying to scale down the post offices that were, had limited use, right? And so, again, you add all this development, you should, again, add additional use to that one. So you,
Put all the scuttlebutt on the internet, and that's just what it is, okay? The post office never came up in the scuttlebutt ramps,
Yeah,
and that's one of the most important things that's up there.
yeah, and it's not even part of the deal, so
Right.
just,
Okay, well, that's
again,
good to know.
just so that we're clear.
Yeah, but to bring it back, I guess that's really my only main concern, and again, if I'm misinterpreting this, please correct me. But I wouldn't want to make this investment, which I think is fantastic, but then shortly down the line be held hostage on somebody who gives no reason about our time or investment into it. So am I off base here in seeing it that way, or?
So, the way I see it, there's no risk to Troutman, because the trunk line would be installed, it would then allow, either now or in the future, the CHA property to discharge their sewer to your system. Now, some more back.
Okay, so it's not a key.
Right.
This hookup we're talking about isn't a.
So if we stub the lines out and just leave them stubbed out and not connected, then expectations, there's some revenue that the town would receive
But even if-
from a
okay.
new sewer customer.
I think I get it
That
much
would be
better
the
now.
way, that's true.
Even if we just stub them and cover them, right?
The county-
Our work is done, right, and it's there.
Correct.
When they're ready to meet the expectations we have, they're ready to go.
The county, the recreation facility from going ahead and connecting, because they're interested in doing that,
Okay.
independent of what CHA does.
Well,
So
and-
that
and-
still move forward.
And so it's not just that, but it's future development there too, that
course.
also would be able to connect to those lines. So it's, again, it's a great tie. Again, that's not just from a CHA perspective, but I think it'd be great.
Yeah, for those reasons, I would certainly recommend we seriously consider the 12-inch
Yeah,
main as opposed to
absolutely.
8-inch for future
Yeah, that's,
reasons.
it's your option, but, we recommend that, and the counties included that in their budgets,
Yeah.
there again, we come out, try this plan.
Anything else for Benji?
Thank you.
Just let me know if we need to call him on Thursday.
I guess I got the next agenda item, is the next two, okay. So the next item 16 and 17 on your agenda for Thursday night are related to each other. So this, the CHA sewer project, that's American Rescue Plan Act funds that the county received that would be used for that project. Of course, Troutman received ARPA funds of their own as well. But in addition to that, the state has appropriated to the Division of Water Infrastructure, part of DEQ, Department of Environmental Quality, some funds to be dispersed on a competitive grant award basis. And so they were taking in applications this May 2nd, and then they'll do it again in the fall, and then I suppose if there's any money left over, they may do one more round, but there's gonna be at least 2 rounds in the spring and fall of '22. So I, got with Doug and with Adam and came up with some projects we would recommend you all apply for. They've got 3 different categories. You're in the category with the least amount of money to be awarded, a little over $50 million. So that's, I'm recommending these, but please keep in mind there's a very good chance you won't win them. Will not be awarded these grants, but we try to pick ones that we feel like would be as competitive as possible. And, but the first item on the agenda before that is the adoption or updating your capital improvement plan for water and sewer. So you adopted one about 3 years ago. If you update and adopt it within 2 years of the application, you get an extra 2 points on your application. So it helps you score higher, be more competitive. So you'll see in your packet, I don't know if you have it yet, but this spreadsheet, so it's got a lot of big projects on there. It's, of course, town's not obligated to actually do these if they don't get funded. But they're under 2023, it's come down to the 4th line under sewer system. It says replace or rehab failing clay sewer pipe, $1.9 million. And the right under that says rehab brick manholes and other failing manholes, $500,000. That $2.4 million would be to address the oldest part of your system right here downtown. And if you're successful, get that money, it would be 100% grant, no local match required.
Excuse me for interrupting you, but I saw that, and water, I can understand, and I think you addressed it, don't you, in the water too, the clay
There's
pipes?
some water items
Yeah.
on here. Yeah.
But under sewer, the sewer, of course, my understanding was the water system started in 1925, so I understand the terracotta, clay pipes. But I don't understand, it was 1965 when they put in the sewer system, or started putting in the sewer system. Surely they weren't still using clay pipe in 1965.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
They
some of
used
it-
Up until in the 90s.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it has its advantages,
It was cheaper.
It doesn't rot.
Yeah, but
or-
yeah, but still, it's just so,
degraded, but
you know,
it's very,
less
very old.
shifting, I mean, from freezing and thawing and so forth, cracks.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, all right.
So that is,
And the seepage just went into dirt.
That's right, up through the 90s.
yes. I mean,
City septic system.
You're right, after the.
I'm surprised, people still doing horse and buggies down through town, and if that's thinking, that's just, okay, all right.
People started transitioning to PVC in the 70s. So not, you know,
Right.
it took a while for people to
Yeah.
be convinced it was.
Those were early adopters in the 70s.
Yeah.
So if you're successful, that would, and that price includes camera work to go, you're right, sometimes you put a camera through the clay pipe and it's perfect. The conditions have been right, no tree roots, there's really no need to replace it. But we suspect the majority will be cracked and worthy of being
As
replaced.
you say, the roots, and just like I said, again, just a slight shifting,
Right.
you know, winter and summer and so
Yeah.
forth, cracking.
In some of these areas, there is no clay left. It's just where it was.
That's true.
Okay.
All right, and then,
Ghost
some of these other, I'll be glad to answer questions on any of these items on the capital improvement plan. Of course, you're free to strike some off if you want to, but a lot of these are already, like the top, one at the top, Westmoreland Road Pump Station upgrade, increased capacity, $1,680,000. That's the one that you've already got funded through ARPA. So ones like that that are already identified, we put those on here. But then you got some, like toward the bottom, upgrade 5 other pump stations, add generators, control panels, pumps, miscellaneous, and we put $1.5 million at 10 years from now. It needs to be a 10-year capital improvement plan. So anything we felt like might probably need to replace or upgrade in the next 10 years, that's what we try to do.
I apologize again for stopping you, but, oh, he's gone. I was gonna ask Adam something, go ahead, sir, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, and then so under the water systems, the first item you see there says water system mapping and assessment, $200,000. So a few years ago, the town requested $150,000 to do that project. This would be the, right now, if you were successful getting a sewer mapping project, your points weren't quite high enough on the water mapping project. So the idea would be now just to reapply again. And increase the budget a little bit. This would be map and assess your water system. So get a better handle on which valves might need to be replaced or hydrants in the coming years. But the biggest benefit from this would be a GPS, GIS mapping system. Right now, it's just paper. So those are the items I recommend that you apply for grant funding. One other item would be is a sewer assessment project. So all these clay pipes we just talked about, you can get grants to just assess, put a put a camera in them and look at all. So this, 2.4 million on this capital improvement plan would include that camera work. But if you're not successful in getting that grant, maybe you'll get the assessment grant. And you use that money to at least do the camera work and get ready for the future project, hopefully get funded to do the replacement work.
Is the assessment in a different fund or?
It is, so, the reason I recommend that is they have a separate pot of money just for these assessment grants.
Yeah.
So for the water mapping and the sewer camera work, you compete for that money, and it's a separate competition than the construction money. And there's actually more money for these assessments than there is for construction, believe it or not. The state really likes the idea of helping towns assess their systems. So
That's
there's a
good.
lot of money in that.
You refer to as assessment and inventory, so I mean,
Correct.
I'd like to know, what part of our sewer system is still terracotta, clay, and water system for that matter. So, if we get an accurate inventory as well as assessment, that'd be great. Certainly an important first step, to address it, if it needs addressing, and, replacement and so forth. And that would be for both sewer and our water.
Yeah, they keep them separate as far as the scoring and get grants just for water or just for sewer. And you can get both, and you can get up to $400,000 combined total. So it'd be a separate grant contract, separate accounting for Justin. And, so that's why there's, in your package, you got 3 resolutions if you choose to move forward with them. So looking under, item 17A is the town Troutman resolution authorizing application improvement project. It's just a general title, but that would be this $2.4 million on the CIP. Assessing and replacing the majority of the clay pipe sewers. And then for the brick manholes, you wouldn't literally dig them up unless you found something that was really bad. Typically, you line the inside with a high strength mortar is. So that's that first resolution. The next resolution, D, is 13-22, a resolution by the town of Troutman authorizing applications for AIA, that's that asset inventory and assessment. State funding a project described as the clay pipe sewer system inventory and assessment project. So if you're awarded both of them, we'll explain this in the applications to the state. You were awarded both the construction project and the assessment project. This is for the clay pipe sewer. You would probably have to turn down one of them for, at best case scenario, they would give you the assessment grant, let you go ahead and do that work, and then roll that into a better informed construction project. And then the last one, item C, resolution 14-22, is a resolution by the town of Troutman authorizing applications for AIA state funding of project described as the water system inventory and assessment project. That would be the mapping and assessment of the water system. Those, the pump station, like adding generators and replacing pumps. I know Barron Season's pump station needs a screen. They're getting a lot of debris clogging up the pumps. Things like that would be great, but I just know from experience, those would not be competitive. It's not the reason the clay pipe should score the highest is because you can link that to where you've actually had spills, or when you all have had sewer spills and documented those and turned them into the state for enforcement action. You can link that to the cracks in the pipe, letting the groundwater get into the system. That scores the highest. That would be the most competitive.
Now, on the Westmoreland upgrades, which is vitally needed, I certainly agree. We've discussed about, the size of the pipe. What's that? Is that 10 or 12 inch pipe there on Westmoreland?
The force main from Westmoreland to Mooresville is a 12-inch pipe.
12 inch. And you feel like that one line is enough to handle what we see in the foreseeable future?
You're a smart man. I've studied that quite a bit since this came up, that we needed to expand it. We can about double the capacity, but that's all we can do. Can't triple it, can't quadruple it. That's about all you can force through that 12-inch pipe.
That's my concern, especially with all this going on and probably will continue to go on for some time.
Right. The projection so far is that will handle it. With all these being new homes, amount of water they use, no I&I associated with these new homes. It's all new systems.
Mhm.
So your actual pumping capacity needed will be lower than what's used for the estimates. Used to be 120 gallons per day per bedroom. We got it now down to 85 gallons per day per bedroom. Doug and I just met with Mooresville. They're getting it down to 60. We could probably do the same thing.
So the Westmoreland is one that's already approved, right?
The funding is
Funding.
earmarked, yes,
Yeah.
in the state budget. Yeah.
Other questions for Benji? Apply.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of a no-brainer, because a lot of times, the best you can hope for is a 50% grant, and then you gotta come up with the other 50%. In this case, it's 100% grant.
And all of these things to me are essential, past due. And
Yeah.
as the mayor says, apply, and even 50%, that's 50% more than we had. And something that's got to be done. We can't continue to kick the can down the road, or we are gonna find ourselves in a bind.
Don't have a crystal ball out, and that, pretty good likelihood you get the AIA grants from our construction. We'll try our best.
That's still a win. I mean, I think with the things that we've got coming down the line in the next several years, if we don't take stock now, then we're just gonna keep throwing mud on the mud hill. We're not really gonna be able to solve anything. So I think that's great. I think it'd be a great thing for us.
We won't turn down any of the construction grants, but just let them know that.
For the purpose of the application, can they adopt all of these resolutions in one motion?
I don't see why not.
Okay.
Well, I just need a signed resolution turned in by May 7th, or it won't be considered.
So on Thursday, we get to those, will, A, B, and C, all in one motion. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you for rearranging the agenda for me.
Thank you.
Back to the top of Thursday's agenda, to review what is coming up. Consent agenda 1 through 6 are what they are. 7 is a housekeeping item, which is down at exit 42. Mr. Bryant has already, that one's already been through planning and zoning. There was no issues with it. Number 8, Justin is here. These comes that time of the year, just to remind you all, part of what we are doing also with Justin, not to make light of the situation, to be sincere, as we happen this time of the year, this is not changing what the budget was. It is simply line items to make sure that we have things transferred to make sure that we will zero by the end of the year, but it's to do things so that the accounting procedures are correct. But 8A is loan payments for the purchase of 334 North Avenue, and the ICS utility training. C is Lens Lock, which was previously approved. All these items have already been approved by you. It's just getting them done and the budget and the right line items they need to be. D was new computers for admin planning departments. E, planning house renovations on Eastway. The various parts that have come in there, including the security door for the front. F is Simply Soft payroll and training for contracted services through our vendor, Harris Company. And G is Bell Construction. That one specifically to talk about is the water main break in North Eastway and Old Murdock Road. That, to our knowledge, that includes all the bills except for our in-house normal payments that occurred. I'll be happy to answer any questions, as will Justin, if you all need any clarification on any one of those in particular.
Just the water main break, that was that first big main issue that we had. Because I remember the subsequent breaks were deemed not our.
That is correct.
Okay. I just didn't know, I didn't know if that was lumped in and we would be reimbursed, or how that, this is just.
That's the one break. The other two that occurred that were in close proximity, neither one wound up being a town expense.
Okay.
That is correct, confirming what you said.
Any other questions on those items before we?
We got 2 on the next page too, which was, I guess, the CRTP and the 344, is that freight, number 9?
Yes. Finance and terms for 344,
Yeah.
that's, do you have those with you? Or is there, are they in the packet?
Is that a resolution, Kim, did you include that?
It is a resolution, yes, it's in there.
Those, even though we agreed for the purchase, that has the terms that's in your packet. That is where Justin submitted a bid to several vendors asking for who had the best terms. And that is, we haven't purchased the property yet. but that will close. Did they give you a date back this afternoon?
Let me check my emails.
But
I've
it
been
is
in here,
Frank's
but
property, right?
That is the Frank
third,
Burgess,
yeah,
yes,
that's
yes,
right.
yes,
Well,
yes.
that's-
I think they're gonna try to, do the 13th.
But if you all approve the terms, these terms, we'll sign that with the bank. The way we have done those in the past, just to remind you all, is we use funds on hand, close the property, and then we go to the bank and then do the loan after that, reimburse ourselves, is the way that works.
It was like 2 point something, if I remember.
Yeah, 2 points, yeah,
I think it's
Three.
2.99.
Yeah.
something like that. And what bank again is it?
BB&T,
True.
Yeah, sure, not sure.
yes, I'm sorry.
Is it-
No, Truist,
I'm
yeah.
sorry,
yeah.
yes.
10-year, 299.
That's correct.
And I want to say that's almost 0.5% higher than the last one.
Yeah, interest rates have started going up. Yeah.
Yeah, significant.
We were lucky to lock that one in
Yeah.
about a
Give it
month
10
or so
years,
ago.
And then number 10, approve the CRTPO interlocal agreement with Charlotte to proceed with the town Troutman mobility study. Andrew?
Yeah, if you remember, we signed a resolution back in December to use, basically $24,000 of $40,000 we had earmarked for a secondary roadway plan and budget. We decided to go ahead and move forward as soon as we can get a grant from ARPO, which would be cheaper on the town and actually cover more. So, we've got $124,000 going towards a mobility plan. As it says in the packet, technically, we can't use this money until the beginning of the fiscal year. But one thing I did want to update is it doesn't say we can't get all of our ducks in a row before the beginning of the year. I've already drafted up our bid to submit so we can get some consultants to contact us. That will be going out next Monday. NCDOT approved of that. So by July 1st, we should be ready to go and have a consultant. So long as we sign the interlocal agreement and send that off to Charlotte.
Andrew, what's the situation with having Charlotte involved as a supervisor, or, something we have to run through them, and can you explain that relationship a little bit, please?
Yeah, it's basically, it's federal funds that are allocated to the state, but they're planning funds, so anything that's used as planning funds, these are not capital projects at all, these are just planning documents. For some reason, the state requires the MPO to be the supervisor of these funds, and being our MPO, CRTPO is a department of the city of Charlotte. Charlotte's the one we have to get involved with this contract with. It's basically, it's just red tape that we have to follow in order to get this money.
Is this because the organization itself, CRPTO, the CARPO, is not set up to supervise these funds as Charlotte can? I mean, is that the reason Charlotte seems to be the lead dog here?
Basically, CARPO is a department of the
Yeah.
city of Charlotte.
Right.
So the city finances CARPO, basically. So that's why we're going through the city as opposed to CARPO.
I understand, okay.
When they broke it down in a nutshell, just one little more caveat to that, the funds used to come, this part of the state went to Charlotte, and the central part of the state went to Raleigh, and the eastern part of the state, it went to Wilmington, and instead of them doing it that way, we Charlotte Regional, and we all got at it.
And one benefit I will say with having that extra CARPO being involved, as opposed to our sidewalk and greenway projects where it's just communication with Division 12 or whoever we can get a hold of. The staff at CARPO is a lot easier to get a hold of, a lot more receptive, and they're a little bit easier to deal with than CDP as a whole.
And also I will add, and Andrew can correct me if I'm wrong, but projects like this, if it was left the way it used to be, we basically wouldn't be considered when you put it up on a scale of the way things were. So with it kind of going in this pot, we are now considered as equal, if you will, for planning projects, especially a town our size, to qualify for funding like this more than ever now. So, and especially with us having an insider, if you will, that's a vice president of that committee, it really helps us to be able to, as long as he has served, to be able to articulate why certain projects help us. So when I discuss with him, hey, we've got these projects going up, what do you think about this? He already is a plethora of information to say, hey, you can do that if you want to, boss man, but honestly, you're just wasting my time, Lynn's time, because it's not gonna score too well, and I already know. So it's an advantage to have him there because he's already seen how projects do score and or get talked about down there, having served in that role and capacity, to where when I started talking about him, our pedestrian plans and all this, he said, hey, I actually think this could score if we could write this up. So that then too comes to fruition for us as well. Any more on that one? Thank you, Andrew. The next one, I think Councilman Now has been waiting for this for a while. Go ahead, Justin.
Is this our audit?
It's our audit.
Well, it's only April of 2022, so, you know,
Without
we're
the-
getting our, we're getting it on time, you know, only about 6 months late, but that's okay.
Without the full in-depth discussion, of course, as this is our agenda, you all have it in there, and as Justin can tell you, as we fully expected, the audit come back clean. Did you have any concerns, any hiccups or questions, other than the fact that it was late because of their staff bailing out on them?
Right. No concerns. You know, with towns our size, they usually will probably have a recommendation of, you don't have the proper segregation of duties because you don't have enough people. That's just standard. I expect to see that in her full audit report, but, no, that's nothing of concern.
One thing I had a concern was in the findings, that when you look at discrepancies and deficiencies, that, you know, and they look at the balance sheet of all kind of different funds, but how do they miss the garbage and recycling bit of discrepancy over here? They never point that out. That, hey, you guys are paying this money, you're not collecting it. I mean, I would have thought that would have been part of it.
As an audit firm, I'm not sure that's their responsibility. They're just trying to make sure you do all your,
But I mean, they do that piece on the end, they miss, they kind of, there's things they listed, and I
Right.
remember, because I remember getting audits, and they would say, because I fought that battle a long time ago.
right.
Yeah,
They
your-
run
your garbage is way
analytics.
over this, there'd always be a finding.
Right,
You
they-
need to consider raising the garbage, which you have to get council to do, but that's, but they never mentioned that. I
Yeah,
went
they-
to specifically this year and say, why did you not mention it?
I'm sure they run analytics, like I used to do at my old firm that I worked for, but they might be looking at too high of a level, you know, versus just, here's your recycling cost and what you're collecting. They may be looking at the big overall picture that includes other funds with that. I don't know, I can't speak on their behalf, but it's just my guess. Yes, sir.
Did we receive the bill for that final vote?
No, we have not yet.
Okay, and like I brought up before,
Mhm.
once we do, my suggestion would be we strongly review it for the customer service that we were provided, and talk to them as gentlemen to possibly readjust it.
Yes, sir.
And ladies.
Am I-
Any other questions on the audit? Phyllis will be here presenting.
She will be here Thursday night. Yes.
Hopefully not with the bill.
Are they planning to remain in the audit business for?
I cannot answer that on their behalf. I'm not sure.
Great.
You know, a great firm up in Mayberry.
All right, Mr. Wyatt.
The question, Councilman Harris, or the statement he made about the garbage reminds me at the end, I do have something to say about that I failed to say earlier in my staff comments. New business, council, number 11, the ordinance to town Troutman, regulating the controlling of the deposit of mud, dirt, construction material, debris from construction sites. Just as my comments to you all states, due to so many complaints at various construction work sites, it is unfortunate the town is placed in the position of having to add an ordinance with penalties to mandate what should be common sense. Councilman Harris, Councilman Hinkle, I think on one occasion, we had an opportunity to also view it, and I have discussed with staff several times, and have had pictures. We sent it to code enforcement and the planning department, and it's unfortunate. There is a state statute, as I have copied and sent to the planning department, but that is kind of vague as to what we're trying to accomplish here, and we will be happy to discuss it with you all if you feel the need to go in further depth. But unfortunately, as these developers are here, if we don't take action to let them know that we're more serious about what they're doing to our streets and neighborhoods, then I think it's going to get worse instead of better. And that's why we felt the need, as several of you all have talked to me about the various complaints that you are receiving and the various things that we have seen ourselves. It's like one of you all said, when you walk these streets, when you live here, you work here, you play here, there's no reason why some of our neighbors should have to drive around somebody else that is just trying to make money off of us and leave. And when some of these workers, that's what they're doing, and they don't seem to care. And unfortunately, as I drive through some of these neighborhoods, as you all do, it infuriates me to get a shoulder shrug or a, what are you gonna do about it? Well, this is what we hope to do about it, that will hurt them in the pocketbook to maybe make some changes.
I agree. That's, you know, and I think keeping it in-house instead of leaving it up to the county, soil erosion, or I understand even some people have called permitting department, and, you know, they threatened, but again, that's delaying the situation. That's going through a third party. It's not a part of Troutman. If we bring this in-house, I think the response is going to be more under your control to see that it's done, and it's done quickly and correctly. And, you know, when you start involving the county or the state, it just gets more complicated. Like we said a while ago, forming these committees, if you have too many people, you're just muddying the water and it delays. You just, you know, when you bring it in-house, you got a few people involved, it's gonna, you know, it's gonna work so much better in my opinion. And that's why, as I said at the first meeting, I'm tickled to death to see this hopefully coming to fruition.
Yes, sir. Anything else?
I think the folks on Autumn Police would appreciate it as well.
Yes, sir.
I've gotten a couple of those phone calls lately, so thank you.
Yes, sir.
Is it,
Joe makes that to Joe.
I wholeheartedly agree with this. I'm just wondering, will we be able to quantify what we consider excessive debris? You know, I mean, if it rains one day and there's some tracks on the road, I mean, we got people in our own communities that live on unpaved roads that's just a daily part of life. You know, so I don't know, you know, how can we know that we stand behind it, when we levy a fine or a violation, that we can, you know.
Well, I think even by state statute, tracks on the road is one thing. When mud is posited there and rocks and debris, that's something entirely different. And when I say mud, I'm not talking about the red tracks to where that went. I'm talking about clumps of mud, not just signs where somebody drove through a mud hole.
Okay, yeah, I just want to be sure that, you know, when the day comes when we need to, you know, hold somebody accountable to this, that they can't. Well, it's just this, or, you know, like, no, this is statute says, that's what I need. Thank you.
Yes, sir. The next one, number 12, annexation by Phillips couple. That went through planning and zoning. I don't think anyone except the realtor even showed up. It was non-controversial by anybody. Number 13, was there any questions about that one? I think it's a 1 acre lot down below near the charter school. Number 13, it's a continuation of number 12. Number 14, this one was a little bit different. Even though it's town properties and town PIN numbers, and these are the vacant lots to the our right, or my right. To us, it's also the 2 houses that used to be owned by the Ellis family, and or the house next to it that we're calling the planning house. It's what we refer to it as staff, is because we hope it to be the planning house. Also the house next to it, which Larry Ellis used to live in. That one, as we discussed at the planning board meeting, most likely there's one interested couple that would like to salvage it and maybe move it somewhere else. I'm not certain that the bones of the house allow it to be that, if they can even find a moving company that will do that. They have tried several. It used to be, I just lost her name, it started with an H, out of Catawba County. If they even do it anymore, the Crouch Brothers was another one. I don't know that they do it anymore, but they are actively trying to find somebody to see, and they have, I've told them how to view the house. There are materials inside the house that I certainly feel like are reclaimable and could be used, but we are going to give it another few weeks and then offer that house for some type of bid and or people to come in and offer to purchase parts to reclaim, and then it will need to be destructed or crushed and moved. We are using Mark Jewett, one of our new employees, to remove flowers off of the property and reset those around various town properties. The other house that is on here is the one at the corner down here that we most recently have purchased, that goes into the park. And Lynn and Andrew certainly can correct me, but that one was the one that drew the most discussion at the planning board, from one planning board member in particularly, that stated they liked the walkability factor. And I'm like, under the zoning, which is heavy residential, which means numerous townhomes could be built on the property in the front and the rear if the town did not own it, and somebody wanted to develop that, was explained, and the walkability factor would then go away. Apparently did not resonate with the planning and zone board member, and they said, well, they liked the fact that a house was there, therefore they didn't want to change the zoning, because they still liked the fact that a house was there and you could still walk across it and around it. And there's another board member that apparently liked what they had to say, and it passed to be rezoned 3-2. I don't know how else Lynn could have done her job and presented the facts that we needed it rezoned, and that the town owned it, and that it would not be changing the walkability factor. Our intent was to protect it for the park. That's why the town bought it. And if anything, the town may use it for offices and or rent the house out and keep it as a residential structure, but that still didn't resonate any. So I don't know what else to say other than the town would like to have this passed and used and keep the walkability factor, even though that seemed to cause hardship for one planning and zoning board member. I'll be glad to answer any questions on it. Did I miss the speak there, Lynn, Andrew?
I'll just mention that item D was a typo, and I've already give it to Kim to be corrected.
Thank you.
It kind of one of those that picked up from the one before.
Thank you.
I will correct it on the final agenda tomorrow.
Thank you.
Was there a conversation that prior there have been some issues between the park and property owners of that particular parcel that you referred to?
Say that again, please.
When those 2 board members had issues, was it discussed that there have been prior issues? Okay.
Not that I'm aware of. I'm not privy to any prior conversation at all.
I don't think so, Mr. Mayor. I believe it was just some misunderstanding on their parts of what was being said and told and not understanding the background as we understand it, so, you know, I think, you know, I didn't concern me because I feel that, you know, what needs to be done will be done, hopefully. But I think it was just a misunderstanding on a couple of people's part, I believe.
Has he moved out
Not yet, he has till the end of the month.
till the end of the month?
Yes, sir.
And that's the house on the corner.
Yes, sir, right here at the corner.
Well, so, who owns do we own the park?
We do not own the
Like this
park.
entrance here, yeah, right, that's leased from. I'm looking at the map, you know, at the entranceway, right, and so,
To answer your question, what we rent going in, there is a very narrow strip. Basically, if you're, where the driveway is going in, if you drove your car in,
yeah,
there's only about a 10-foot strip to the right of that paved portion that is our leased property, only about 10 foot, if 10 foot, to answer your question.
and it seems to
Now-
follow that
Yes.
bend once you
Yes.
enter the park.
Now, the town has an easement which goes to a sewer line that's to the right of that. And the current homeowner, well, the former homeowner, that was his issue, and that's why he allowed it to grow up. As we tried to maintain that easement, there were trespassers that would come up into his yard and treat it as if it were part of the park. And if you go on around, as you're describing, that 10-foot or the steep hill part around to the rest, then people would go down and play in the creek or the stream, which is his property.
Okay.
So
There's some odd parcel shapes.
Yes,
all
so
through
the
there.
walkability factor that was discussed in the planning and zoning, it's not walkability at all, it's
Right.
private property.
Right. Yeah, so if a Paul kid
Just
takes a
what I
home,
couldn't figure out when I read your notice, where would the
so
walk
now
go?
we can try-
Exactly.
Unless they were talking about, that we were cutting off the side, the streets out here, there's buildings, you know, this property over here,
Although this was
in that house is nothing there.
quote-unquote leased
Unless they're
property.
walking in the street, they
Hey, guys, we
basically
can
would be
complain about it when we're walking
trespassing.
on it, But you and him made it
We're
more.
looking to take this
Right.
from RNHB.
And if the town hadn't purchased it, and that property was sold to an individual that wanted to build houses,
Office institution.
then it really would have been.
You know, one big point, and I think the mayor was really big on this one, and I agree 100%. This is the entrance to our park. We now have control.
Absolutely.
Entrance to our park and the aesthetics, quality, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, for me, that was a big reason for, you know, supporting purchasing that property.
And as we tried to say at the planning and zoning board, as far as that walkability factor, we now control it and want it. Which goes back to exactly what the mayor said. We want that. That's why we purchased the property, to keep that part.
Correct.
Is there a, I mean, is the intended use, I mean, I know we can't really determine that today, but is the intended use to be office space?
Well, when we bought it, it was basically, as the mayor pro tem and the mayor had said previously, was to protect the park first and foremost, but if and when the town may need space, it very well could be that we have to use it for office space, depending on what happens, as we call this, the planning house next door. If that winds up being enough space for the planning staff and/or rec, then super. If not, then we may have to create more space down here for staff. We had talked at one point, we may have to move the police department there, for example, with the exception of a couple things that we can't move down there just for security that belongs to the police. But to tell you, to answer that honestly, Councilman Oxer, I can't.
Sure, yeah, I
Just-
just didn't know if we.
Just looking at this new project that may go to Barium, one of the things they have offered there, depending on what council decides to do, they have offered a space that could be a town hall, for example. So depending on what you all decide to do, if they donate the property there for us to build a town hall, it depends. And if council at the future, if that project goes through and is approved, and if council decided to, okay, let's shift town hall there, then this became the new police department, then certainly that could stay a residential house to be rented, and it never need to be an office space.
Sure.
But by the rezoning, we certainly could do that, and it's no harm, no foul. But if we need it to be office space and to get through the proper rules that everybody else has to follow, if we don't go through that and have it rezoned to where we could use it as office space, then we go through and have the inspections done, the I's dotted, the T's crossed. It may be a 6 to a 9 month process, as we're finding out with what we're calling the planning house, that I can bet you Lynn and Andrew will certainly tell you they are having to share an office, and they would have loved to have their own office space 8 months ago, and we still don't have an office space for them yet because we're still going through the proper process.
Sure. Yeah, and it was,
I'm
oh,
sorry,
please,
I'm
no,
sorry.
by all
I was
means.
gonna say that's really what prompted staff to pursue rezoning on that property, is we wanted to make sure that we were in compliance with our own ordinance. With that being the planning house, we didn't wanna be sitting in a house that was zoned residential, using it for office space.
Sure.
And the reason we chose that OI district is because it allows residential uses and office uses. So it does not prevent the town, as the manager said, from leasing any of these buildings if it comes down to that.
Okay, so even using it as office space any time in the near future, we would just be talking about a conversion of the current structure that's on there. I struggle with the aerials.
Sure.
So it's like, I just see how much that property line, for the first time, for me, seeing how close, I know there's an easement there, for sewer, but that's really encroaching into the, not by parcel, but into the park. So that's, I see that tree line, I'm like, and I know that I wouldn't wanna lose that feel you get right there being at the pavilion, that you're not you're off Main Street. And you're in the
As the
nature.
mayor stated, the
So,
town purchased that for that very reason, so that we can
Awesome.
make sure that.
Okay.
So this zoning change will not change that at all. That's not the intent.
Perfect.
So basically though, at the end of the day, that's the entrance to our park. And we, down at Troutman, dictate. We own it, so what's gonna ever happen there? So it's a win-win for the town.
Yes, sir. That's simple.
All right. Any other questions? Concerns? All right.
The next one is 18, and you all have the applications already in your packet, correct? On the various appointments for boards of adjustment, planning and zoning board, and parks and rec committee. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have on any of those. The one thing I will say is the one member that is coming off of Parks and Rec Committee, Mike Satoris, asked me to apologize to you all on his, and he has committed time and money to the Parks and Rec Committee previously over the years, and I think his and his wife Teresa's name are on one of the plaques down there, and he goes back to his TYAA days many years ago, and he would love to continue serving on the Parks and Rec Committee. It's just that his role and responsibilities at South Iredell High School does not allow him to be able to make it to our Parks and Rec Committee meetings. And it is one of the rules there that if you don't make, I think it's 2 meetings in a row, then you're off.
3.
3. Kim just corrected me. She does that on a regular basis. So 3 meetings, then you're off. And again, it's not his choice. It's, he would like to tell them to find another bus driver. And he said if you all knew people that would get their bus license, send them up there. He would gladly give up his to make a more enjoyable volunteer committee and not get paid to drive a bus, because he really didn't want to do that. But because of, he does love his job and helping the youth, he is doing that until they can get suitable replacement bus drivers. And, but he wanted me to apologize to you all and thank you all, even though we couldn't find anybody other than Chip Smith to be the Parks and Rec guy, is what he said. But he showed up and played golf Friday at the outing and said that Chip did get that part right. But he did want to apologize.
The recommendation she'll be making is to the county for the ETJ appointments.
Yes, thank you for pointing that out. Did everybody hear that?
No.
That was my question, the appointment versus nomination.
Right.
Thank you.
The appointments are yours to make for in-town residents. And on the ETJ for the Planning and Zoning Board is for the county commissioners. While I disagree with what their practice has been, and I'm glad we're on YouTube so somebody can say, guess what that town manager in Troutman said? They have on a couple occasions went against what the recommendation has been, but I think that has been corrected in the last few years because it has been more important than ever that they understand that our council, as some of the other boards have vetted and went through their recommendations appropriately. We too, one time had a person to show up to them and said, hey, I'm the only one here, you should appoint me. And that's not the process, and that's not the way it's supposed to be. The process is these people have submitted their names for you all to review and make your recommendations, and those nominations will go to the county commissioners for their approval. And I would strongly encourage you all to do your vetting, and if so inclined, whoever makes the nomination to appoint them, follow that up with some type of a letter to go along with that recommendation, not just submit a name.
And that's for the ETJ.
For the ETJ, that's a nomination, not an appointment.
Mr. Wyatt?
Yes, sir.
I've got a question too regarding the Parks and Rec Committee, considering appointment of 3 at-large members. I reviewed the 4 applications that we have.
Yes.
And 3 are in-town residents and 1 is an ETJ. Is there anything that we have to have an ETJ person or?
No, sir. No, on the Parks and Rec Committee, it's not like these other committees to where we have to have a mixture of this or that. For Parks and Rec, it can be in town or out of town. All the appointments can be either way.
It could be somebody from Love Valley.
Yes.
I mean,
No, I
facetious,
believe, no, I
but
believe
you
it.
understand the point I'm making,
You know, somebody with a little skin in the game,
Yeah.
or somebody from Love Valley. No,
Yeah, but that's
well, that could be,
anybody, really.
that could be,
The
Mooresville.
only thing I would say to that, and I respect what you just said, please don't take what I'm about to say as offensive in any way. I will just say our park, just like Mike Satoris, for example, he's an outside person, ETJ guy. Actually, I don't even think he's an ETJ person. I think he's further out than ETJ. Jan Comer, who part of our park is named after, her affiliation with ESC, she's not even considered to be in our ETJ. We do have some people who are further outside than our ETJ who have contributed extreme amounts, and there are some. I don't even know, honestly, who any of the people that Well, that's not true.
Bless you.
That guy over there, I think his application is one of the four. Other than him, I'm not familiar with anybody else that has put any in, off the top of my head. But sometimes with Parks and Rec especially, because of where they may work or the fact that Jan Comer may have recruited them, because she has done a lot of that over the years, she's went and recruited people. It's untelling who they may show up. But normally, I would 100% agree with you, hey, we need the skin in the game people, and that's the case. But, and that's one of the anomalies, that we don't know.
And
But-
just to piggyback a little bit, and again, I very much like the manager agree with your initial assessment. What we have seen, however, is we need all the volunteers we can get.
Well, it's a good thing to have 4 for 3
Yeah, yeah.
spots.
And if somebody, again, our town is changing, right? So if someone works in the town, they may not live here, but they may have a set of skills that really could help in developing that committee. And so I wouldn't want us to think about not considering those individuals if they're willing to serve. So just thinking of it in those terms. But yeah, some of these others, I think you need to have a little bit more investment, if you will, in the community. But again, some of these, we struggle with getting people to serve. And Parks and Rec is one. We need that experience, that input from people that may see other parks, you know, in other places where they might live and or work. And so we want to try to utilize that skill set if we can, if they can prove that to us.
My only conundrum here is we have 3 openings and 4 good
Yes.
candidates.
I was gonna ask the same question, is there a cap in our,
In the rules and
Yes.
regs, yes.
in our, okay,
Yes.
which can be changed by the council if we so chose?
It can actually be changed by the committee.
The committee can,
Okay.
on that particular committee, that's not a council discretion,
Okay, that's
unfortunately.
true. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yes, sir.
My last
No, but
point.
not all are new applicants.
Right.
No, there's 2 reappointments.
Right.
Yeah. But you still got a math problem.
Ken,
Oh, sure. But yeah, this isn't 4 new faces for
Yeah,
for
yeah,
the open
absolutely.
seats.
can the council suggest to the committee that we want it changed to
Certainly.
allow
Certainly.
one more?
Yeah.
Certainly.
Before we,
You tell the committee, you don't have to
tell,
suggest.
okay,
You're the ultimate wizard of Oz.
That's-
before Thursday night then.
Can we,
Well, the committee won't be meeting until next month.
Yeah,
Right.
the committee would
Well,
have to.
like Gary just said, we're gonna tell the committee to make it 4.
that's my question. Would you agree with that process, or would you prefer going through the committee? So that we can go ahead and dispense maybe with all 4 good candidates Thursday
Well,
night?
I would ask that you all look at those applicants and then talk to your Parks and Rec director and staff, and then make a nomination appropriate Thursday.
Do we need to update the reappointment request form?
Well, see,
Probably.
he's already jumping into my next. And some of these guys that I've been here.
I don't even know what you're talking about, but for you to ask that question, probably.
Yeah. So here's the thing, and I know it's an issue, and it seems like we're close to getting it resolved, right? So there's multiple forms still out there. I don't know how people are getting the multiple forms.
The only forms I know were supposed to be on the website, and I think, now Michael, if you're talking about the one that Michael filled out,
So
he
Tanya
filled out.
Tanya has a form, Sally has a different form,
But hers is
Michael has a
reappointment.
different form. But it should be a form that we've looked at in the past that would cover all committee.
Yeah, there were several on the website, and they were supposed to have been taken down.
Right,
You're
but
right.
somehow they're still surfacing multiple forms. So Michael filled out the long form.
Michael filled out the appointment form by error. I think Chip sent him the
Yeah, I
wrong
did. I
one.
sent my.
And so we did, and that was like last minute, like
Okay.
before the packets went out, so we didn't make him do a reappointment form. I just wrote on there reappointment.
Okay. So one is So the separation was, if you were new, you should be, like Sally, fill out the application for
Yes.
a committee, right?
Right, uh-huh.
And she technically would be considered a reappointment?
To the committee?
No, she was a council member.
She was
before,
council
right?
rep.
Yeah, exactly, okay.
So she would be a new member.
Barry General
Martin would be a new member.
Okay, so on the website, it says if you're seeking reappointment, click here. If you're seeking for appointment, click here.
Right.
So, okay, so Tanya would have,
Tony would have been reappointment.
okay.
So that's
But
the
Parks and Rec is not.
But Parks and Rec was left off of that one for some reason. I don't know
Okay.
why. She had to write it in.
Okay. So
So we can-
just some minor tweaks then.
I would say, that I don't think Parks and Rec is considered a committee on that. We will look at the form and see. Because that's not an appointed committee. We'll look at it and see. There was a reason that was discussed last year, but we'll look at it and see.
So on the application to serve committee or advisory, it lists, that one does list Parks and Rec on the long form, but it doesn't on the reappointment
Right.
form. Just some
Okay.
administrative, just. Yeah,
So I wasn't alone on that one? All right,
Oh,
good.
here it is. This is where I have my notes.
Been trying to, we had like 5 forms at one point, and people were, so we're good. I mean, we've done a great job of getting it down to these.
Yeah, we're done.
Anything else, Mr. Wyatt?
As I had said earlier, and, we had talked about in the direction I had received, from a couple of you all, and I just wanna make sure instead of us wasting time, staff-wise, we had talked about, and made you all aware during the budget session, the fees that we were collecting as a town, and I just wanted to clarify a couple points. And again, we certainly will do what you all ask, myself, Justin, and Adam to continue doing going forward, before next week's, budget workshop. But, in talking to a couple other towns and what they do and what they don't do, what we have found and what Statesville has recently done is they have repealed part of, if not all of, I haven't confirmed.
Phased over, a couple, 2 or 3 years.
They've repealed their collection fees of all of that. Now, by statute, we all are required as government to provide certain services. Collection of garbage is one of those that we're required to do, as we're required to provide public service and safety of our citizens, as you are freshwater, wastewater, that's part of what you're required to do by statute. And us looking at some general numbers and having discussions between Justin, myself, and Adam, and what some towns do, especially in our area, we certainly have, once you start looking at, as somebody said, hey, tell us what all fees we're paying when it comes to pick up limbs, pick up leaves, snow removal, and again, those are things you're not required to do as a town by statute. And while we certainly, as a convenience, want to scrape our streets when it does snow or ice, sometimes that can be problematic. If you scrape the streets today and then it snows again tomorrow, some people's going to, wait a minute, you didn't scrape it fast enough, or you need to scrape it twice. That can be an expensive procedure. But depending on where you live, when they come and scrape the streets, it don't automatically make it 100% drivable for every vehicle. But the general concept of what that is, we try to do that. What we find with some citizens, when we do leaf pickup, for example, we put out a notice that says, hey, have your leaves out by Tuesday so that we can pick them up on Friday. Well, a significant portion of the people are not putting their leaves out on Tuesday until they see us picking up leaves on Friday, and they'll say, oh gosh, let me go out, and then they get their leaves out and then call on Monday and say, hey, you didn't pick up my leaves. So what's starting to happen there is they drive by on Thursday to make their route so that they know how quick the leaves need to get picked up by. So that's creating more time for our contracted service to pick up the leaves. And instead of them complaining, saying, hey, arguing, what we need to do is drive by video, hey, here's where the leaves are on such and such day, and then they're picked up. And that way we're protected. We don't want to argue with our citizens. We want to pick up their leaves that are lawfully or put out appropriately so that they can be picked up. But back to what we all discussed, here's what it's costing us is about $240-ish, $250,000 to pick up all of our waste. That did not include the leaves and the limbs and snow removal. So, and when we go forward, and us trying to get the numbers right, and us also to make ourselves obligated to the statutes, we felt like and wanted to suggest to you all, again, we'll do whatever direction you all give us. But to give you different numbers this coming week, we felt that it may be more appropriate to say, okay, maybe this year we come back with the realistic numbers that says the normal household waste, that be a town obligation, and let's leave it over there. But for leaves and limbs and for the recycles, this is how much it is, and let's come back with that. The tentative numbers, and please don't hold me to this exactly, right now we're charging people $1.80 a month per household to pick up something, which is recycled. That's what it's called. And that's what we're charging. You remember that number? Was it 737 or 747?
764.
764 if we just went and said, hey, leaf and limb pickup. It would then become $764 a month. If we just said, and that was also recycles. Recycle at the current every other week pickup, and leaf and limb at the current schedule that we do now. Instead of it costing $1.80 a month, it would now become $7.64 a month. That is not charging the full fee for all of garbage, and that is not charging a fee for snow removal and those things. So, and again, we'll be happy to do more work and come up with exact numbers if you would like for us to, but in our general computation of numbers, that's where we're at. That way, we would be more in line with some of what other municipalities or cities are doing by not charging the full rate of everything. We would then be picking up the garbage, as we have been doing, without charging any extra rates. But that would have us charging some monies for the extras that we're not required to do by statute. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you say. That way it would not be a healthy punch in anybody's pocketbook.
So that would be basically the 944.
No, sir. No,
So just scratching the 180 then?
yes.
Okay, all right.
Replace the 180 to become 764,
764, so a little less than $6.
which is basically $4.80 some cents more a month.
Statesman's dilemma was that basically, if they rolled it up, this was from Jeff, I think made the statement, if they rolled it up into an increase in property tax as opposed to a separate fee, people tend to swallow it more like candy than, vinegar, so to speak, versus vinegar or whatever, if we do it that way. Because, in the past, we've had this discussion, and it's always been, we tell people, well, that's, if you join the town, that's part of your property tax, we take care of this. And, you know, even Jeff himself, who hated that fee, you know, said, what we need to do to make up for it is roll it into a property tax increase, whether it's a penny or penny and a half or something. So I'm just saying that, something to think about.
I don't disagree with that theory or that philosophy. And I honestly, I don't know where we would get the statistic for the town of Troutman. And that may work for the city of Statesville. I will only say this, in the city of Statesville, at one time, their properties, they had more tenants than they had property homeowners. Now it's not that way. Now I think it's somewhere in the 42–44% are tenants, and the rest are homeowners, property owners. And that still may serve for them to be that case. Here in Troutman, to me, when you start talking about taxes, the fairest tax, because anytime we're charging people money, we can call it whatever we want to call it. At the end of the day, it's still a tax. But the fairest tax of them all is a sales tax that everybody pays, and that way it's not one person because he or she decides to own property, he or she is having to pay the burden for everyone. And I will say, that way the user is paying it all. But to me, it is advising you all, every resident that has to pay a water bill is then, that we pick up their garbage, is now going to pay whatever fee we decide to charge. That way it's spread out, whether they own the home or they don't, and that is fair to everyone, instead of if John Smith, and I know we have some John Smiths that's gonna say, hey, why did you call me out? But if John's, that's right. But if John Smith owns one house that he lives in and then has 3 rental properties, why should he have to pay more because we went up on his property tax? Or if Sally Smith is the one that does that, she's gonna have to pay more. Eventually, her tenants or his tenants will have to pay.
Exactly, yeah.
You pass it on down.
But then we, you all, will then say, okay, for us, if we're wanting to raise, and off the top of your head, how much does a penny raise in property tax for us?
Hold on.
I wanna say it was $54,000, but it was not as much as you would think.
While Justin calculates that, and you
That's probably
continue
pretty close.
to think about it.
How about 54?
It's probably between that and 60-ish, yeah.
So for us to replace this monthly thing, we'd have to go up 3 cents.
Right. That was just the logic that was used, you know.
Yes, sir.
He and I think a couple other council people that agreed, so I was just throwing that out for consideration. And of course, when I grew up in Statesville, it was all rolled into property tax. I was told it was all part of the property tax. And in fact, that solid waste fee was the first time they came out with a certain fee for something like that I wasn't aware of.
Oh, yes, sir.
So, and I know we just in the past, we discussed this in, you know, council at that time, whenever it was, always thinking, well, it's supposed to be part of property tax, and if we need to go up a penny or two, then we'll do it, because that's, instead of, you know, here's, you know, for this, you know, and you get, you know, you come to Troutman, you gotta pay not only your property tax, but you got a fee for this, you got a fee for that, and, you know, it's perception, I guess I should say, perception. And Jeff's thing was, put in a property tax, people don't seem to complain or be upset as much as if you have it in a separate fee.
Yes, sir.
So,
Yeah, the numbers look good to me. Ever since this issue was first brought up, like, I've asked people around town, do you know how much you pay for trash pickup? Nobody has a clue. They don't look, right? They get a water bill, they see a total.
Yeah.
So this, we can call it what we want. We can call it sunshine and happy fee. It's gonna be viewed as an increase in water bill,
Yes.
because that's where it's assessed. So everybody's gonna, why my water bill go up? Those are gonna be the questions we're gonna get. So,
Well,
well, I totally agree with what with what we're doing, that's the perception, that's what I foresee coming back on
I
on
have
this
never
road.
had anybody complain about our property tax. I've had them complain day in and day out about our utilities,
Well,
you know.
Yeah.
that's
and-
the second part of this conversation I'm going to in a minute. Mr. Mayor?
What's the high end, I mean, approximate high end of the cost?
If we added it all,
Yeah,
we didn't figure that number up yet.
I'm saying
to-
per household.
To account for all of our expense,
Trash pickup,
yeah.
We're losing 200.
Well,
Oh,
so
that's it.
my calculation, again, rough estimates, if we're on track where we are through 9 months through the remainder of the fiscal year, leaf and limb, we would be spending about 140, trash and recycle at 240, that'd be a total of 380,000.
We basically would be about, to recover it all and be solvent, we almost
Probably
would
11
be,
or 12 bucks. a
would
month.
be right at $13 a month
You said 140
per
legal.
house,
per household.
per
Yes,
house.
sir.
And that would, to recover everything and be solvent, it would almost be, like I say, $13 per house.
13, 19.
No, in my opinion.
And you're the finance guy.
My thinking is, I would rather look at keeping the, tied to the garbage, because we have a direct fee of what that is from the BB, from Benfield. They charge us this much money for the garbage, we know how much it's costing every house. It's a user fee, which shows up with the water, we say garbage, clearly garbage recycling, both together. And these other things, like, to me, the leaves, pick up the leaves, the limbs, that's part of, I look at it as a property tax, that's a good, you're living in town, these are benefits you get, living here that you don't get in the country. We still get garbage pickup in the country, you just can't get it, the leaves, the limbs, and the snow removal things out there. Those are things I see as property tax area, but to me, we need to go back to the user fee, and if we had to break it down and bring it up over 2 to 3 years, we should put that user fee be based strictly on garbage.
The one,
That's my opinion, because garbage is a set price, we know what it is.
the one thing I will add to, and this is where, again, each person's gonna be different, but this is the one place I cannot say to you all how many citizens that we have that are on fixed incomes, and if we change fees, this is going to affect them. I don't know that number. But if we change property taxes, we will have a certain population, whatever that is, that will definitely draw their anger. But if it's a fixed income person, then if we go up, if we change it, and I said earlier it was $4, my math off the top of my head, that's where I was wrong the one time, it would be $5.84 a month difference.
Yeah.
If we did that over a 12-month period, $5 and something a month is one thing, but for the average household, that's gonna be, for some people, $60. For others, on the other end of that spectrum, that's gonna be $125, to where some only change $40. When you start changing their bills one time a year to be $100 difference, for some of them, that could be a significant impact. And again, with some of our widows and widowers, I'm afraid that much of a change could affect them. But for some of the other people, $5.75, $5.85 a month, I don't know that it's gonna change a life decision to where they have to give up their prescription unless they're already in that circumstance to where it's affecting them.
So you don't think that we would have the same reaction that evidently Statesville has been having for years with their solid waste fee before their vote last meeting?
I honestly don't know the answer to that to be, I don't know. The few people that I have saw that had a reaction to this, I've had more people talk about other subjects, and I've had very few feedback about this one of all the topics that we've got going on. But honestly, I don't know to tell you the answer to that Mayor Pro Tem, I don't know.
We have county residents that live in the town of Troutman limits. And I've been told that we offer garbage pickup to them for a fee. Am I correct? Barry Lane's one of them.
We have, no, partially.
Well, my question is, what do we charge to these non-residents of the town of Troutman that are in the county part of Troutman for their garbage pickup? How much?
We as a town do not. People that live near us, we give them Benfield's number direct, and they can call and do call Benfield, and they arrange their own pickup. We don't do that.
I was led by our old finance manager that we have people on record that are county residents that have trash pickup, that pay the town of Troutman.
We have people that buy water from us that, and I will confirm this, I was told something similar to what you're being told. If they buy water from us,
Okay.
they can get trash pickup, and we will add that.
And what is that?
I don't know. I don't know. I will confirm that one.
Yeah, we
I'll
need to
even
look.
take a ballpark for you.
I wanna say $9 or $10 per month, but I don't know.
So here we are, not even town of Troutman taxpayers, okay? We're offering them a service for $9 when it costs way much more than that.
Well,
We'll confirm that and get back to you. I was told the same thing, and we'll confirm that to see if that's the case. Now, there were several people that did not get any services from us but lived near us. They're just simply referred to Benfield, and they handle that direct. But if they did buy a service from us, which I'm not aware of any that gets wastewater from us but nothing else. And as a matter of fact, with Benji, that we're crafting a policy now that says if they don't buy water from us, then they can't get wastewater to go forward. That's going to be our town policy. They have to buy fresh water. But there are numerous places that we don't and can't provide wastewater, but they do get fresh water from us, but they're not town residents. But most people now, it's a policy that the town adopted a few years ago. If they get fresh water, they have to join the town limits. But we will certainly follow that up to confirm, because like you, I was told there was a few that were in the ETJ before that policy changed a few years ago, that were allowed to get the outside rate of water, and they also opted to get the service. But we'll confirm if there's any of those that's still doing that.
Because there was mistakes made prior to you coming on board, that we were picking up people's leaves, we were
Yes.
picking up people's limbs, and I'm sure, okay, I'll bet you 10 cents, that garbage was also.
$1.80. Bet him $1.80. Yeah.
Because, let's go back. I'm sorry to be bringing up bad memories, and this is not when you were in charge, sir. Okay?
No worries, no worries.
But,
Even if
you know,
it has been while I
to sit
am,
here
it's
and
no
try and
worries.
convince me, okay, that garbage and leaves and limbs are getting, not getting through. I was born at night, but not last night.
I got you. But we will certainly follow that up and check.
yes, sir.
And if it's 980 or somewhere in that, that's probably at the cost, close to the cost for those two services.
It would be cheap, it's
Well-
cheaper for them to take the sanitation from us than it would be for them to go to the dump themselves.
Well, again, it's that for those two services, it's, I think the 13, when I asked for the overall, includes
Everything,
everything.
correct. Yes.
So not the other.
So the 980, you're thinking maybe the recycling and the garbage.
Yeah, it's closer to that cost.
Correct.
Which is maybe what should be a user fee,
Right.
not the other stuff. That should
Right,
be
right, yeah.
the privilege of living in town.
You know, the only thing about the fees though is, and of course you'd have the same effect if you raise property tax, is that, you know, you've got some people that may not recycle for whatever reason. You've got some people that maybe have never put out leaves or limbs, and yet they're gonna be paying that same fee, but I guess that's just, life's not fair, you know, fees are
Like I
always
said,
gonna
it
be
should
fair.
be, just privilege of being in town. You don't just
Yeah.
have to have it out there, but if it's there, we pick it up.
Right,
But this
It
other,
is
we
available.
we have a set price
Right.
for garbage.
right.
And
I just, yeah, I agree with your line of thinking, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Like, I'd like to know if there's another way that we could collect this. Like, if this is a service that we must provide, right, as a community, why is this the only one that we collect in this fashion?
I don't think we have to provide it. It's not a requirement.
So we don't have to provide it.
Understand? No.
Just garbage.
Yeah.
Only thing we have to provide is garbage. But then what happens if we don't do leaf and limb pickup? People start setting fires that you're not allowed to do in the town.
Right.
Right.
So we do have to do garbage then,
Oh, yeah.
which
Yeah.
in turn opens the door to the rest.
yeah,
to the rest of the-
sanitation, you can't have
Right, yeah.
people not having garbage picked up.
Right.
If you don't do recycles, then the TV gets dropped off next door and
Right.
in the creeks and all that stuff, so. It's like everything else. We don't have to, but if we don't, then what is the consequences for not?
I mean, it may be false logic, but like, I don't get a bill every month for the police department. You know, like, but I do for this, and it's, again, it's gonna be viewed as an increase, which it rightfully is, as an increase in utilities.
Well, I hear you. You also don't get a bill every month for the fire department, but you're paying for it every month.
Oh, I'm paying for the police too. You know, like, you know, not on
But
the
the county
on a monthly
commissioners
basis.
decided to bill you for the fire department and you didn't get a say.
But by the same token, if we had found out that instead of being a garbage bill, it wasn't getting collected like it's supposed to be, that for some reason, the metering on the water from Energy United was off, and we were really letting people get water, we were subsidized it by $200,000, what would we do tonight? We'd correct that. We'd say, put it back where it belongs. And I'm saying that with the garbage, yeah, it's kind of hard, and maybe it's been over 2 years, but it needs to be corrected over a fee that's something that's absolute. These other things, leaves and limbs, like I say, everybody don't put them out there. I don't put very many out. Some people don't recycle them. Garbage is a mandatory thing, just like we have water, we have sewer. And I think it should be based on a fee. And I don't think it should be playing around, well, we were charging for leaves and limbs, but we're gonna leave the garbage alone. Because I think, they go say, I didn't put any heck leaves out there, why are you charging me? I don't never put leaves out. But garbage, by gosh, you do. And it's a set fee, and we know what it is.
So you're saying garbage, fee for garbage and that's it then? All
Garbage
others
is a
are
set fee.
Wrapped up into the property tax.
And it
Revenue,
does,
so-
stay right there in the user fees, like I said, your water and your sewer, and there's your garbage bill. Or you can make it.
You're not gonna run into anybody that says, I don't put garbage out.
But the thing of it is,
Well,
we have to provide garbage, just like we have to provide water and sewer. We cannot not pick up the garbage. I mean, that's a law that we have to do. And,
Right.
and I know from before, I've gotten burned over not raising garbage rates over years that, you know, I let run a bingo game trying to get out of trouble because of illegal landfills and stuff. So I'm just saying garbage is something that should be part of that normal fee, just like we would if we messed up with the water and we were undercharging water, we would raise it tonight and say, we gotta get, this is what it really is. And we're gonna charge it. Garbage, we know what it really is.
What about recycling? Roll that up in the garbage.
It'd be rolled into garbage because that's just, now, the
So
other
that's
thing,
our
somebody may not
240.
put out recycling, they're gonna put out garbage. So the recycling and the leaves and limbs, I see, you know, these people live in town, that's kind of the advantage of living in town, and you put up some of the other stuff you don't have to out in the country, but you get these other privileges that they always want from us, when they can get them free, as you mentioned. But
Yeah, I'd rather see a fee increase than a tax increase.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you do
Yeah, stay away from tax.
property tax increase for residents, I
But
would.
and that doesn't go to the
that's
user.
yeah.
Garbage is a user fee,
Yeah.
just like water and sewer.
You don't want the bad news now?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I mean, we are already in
thought we
it.
started 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, I'm like, we're deep in it now. I don't-
Candy.
We received correspondence from Energy United that they are going up 7% on water.
Are we gonna raise that? As a county, yeah.
Yeah, we got it.
Yeah, that's right, it's just the garbage.
We've already absorbed some of
And
their
garbage
increases.
is
Not an
Yeah.
option. The town of Maiden,
City of Newton,
city of Newton, yeah, I was blaming Maiden, they sent me hate mail.
Yeah.
they're going off the inflation rate, so
Yes. And we are confirming that everybody in that line has went up, but, and that's actually, I don't think is accurate, as what the inflation rate is. I think it's actually higher than that. But last year they went up before that,
1.4%, I believe.
and we did not go up either year.
Do we know what date the,
It's
increase?
July 1st.
July first.
So this was spurred by Newton?
Yes.
That's where the water
That's
comes
what we-
from.
Right.
Yes.
So they charge Energy
They're-
United more.
they're charging
So
the-
they're passing it along to us.
Wasn't there talk we could maybe get it cheaper from Mooresville?
States.
Statesville.
Statesville is got the grant from the state to redo their lines, and we are hooked up to get their lines as backup. But we have a contract, Gary can tell you, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I think we've got 6 more years that we have to buy a minimal amount of water from them before we can consider going anywhere else. But we were originally supposed to purchase 500,000 gallons. They reduced it to 330,000 gallons. We're purchasing more than that, of course. Statesville has agreed to sell us water at what rate and when we will have lines hooked up and ready to go. I don't know that that's an appropriate discussion at this point to get into the details, but
Yeah, probably needs to be on the table.
Everything's
near
always on
future.
the table, but I think clearly just understanding that overall premise, I guess, around trash and recycle. I would say if we're gonna do it, we would wanna do it maybe around the same time. Be my only recommendation, because I wouldn't want us to do one here and then another one in 2 months and, you know, just.
I certainly agree with that, and I will say strongly that we need to emphasize and collect the data, how many times they have went up on us that we have not went up as an absorption, and now we don't have any choice but to go up, and why we're going up and the percentage that we're going up. And let me say this, even though that's a very high rate, and I think, and let me say this, not as a critical factor to them for going up, who knows why they chose this rate and what their cost factor is, and employee services and other things. I'm not there going to criticize them for what their foundation is as to why this is the time they're choosing. But I can say they have went up in small amounts several times. But I can say we as a town have not. The reason we have not in previous years is when we went up, it was at a rate to where we knew there would be future things. So you all's option when we bring these numbers and the facts to you at the budget session is, this is the last time the water rates went up, and this is how many times they have went up to us. Then our direction needs to be with options that we bring you, we go up a percentage above that so that we can absorb future rate increases, but also build up our bank account for that, or we keep going up every time they go up. It's that simple. One of the two choices is how we have to do that. And again, understanding what we're talking about, these other rates, that's, everybody has to do that with their budgets. Do we go up getting these cost factors that absolutely, as Councilman Harris says, this is the cost. We're not trying to make a profit off of nobody. This is the cost of doing business. Period. Put it back in the coffers. Or do you build out a little bit of a buffer? Now, one of the things that happens as part of the good news here, if you want to call it that, it's not. Next year is reevaluation year for everybody's taxes. Now, a lot of people's gonna get angry once those bills come out. That's not our fault. They can blame the county for that. But then, once those property tax bills come out, the governments, local governments, towns and cities, they get a little bit of a shot in the arm that's gonna last about 3 years before you come back to neutral on what the budgets are gonna be again. So, as far as ad valorem taxes or property taxes, I had one staff member say, quit saying that foreign Latin word. But as far as the property taxes goes, once that comes out with the reevaluation, yes, that will help us some on the town's budget for the property taxes. But the cost of these services are simply going up. As we discussed during our what was the word, Mayor? Planning? Strategic planning sessions. Our cost of employees, just the basic employees, has gone astronomical. We talked about hiring a public works employee that a couple years ago typically would have been $32,000 to start out. One young man that we talked about hiring, I said, well, let me call him and see if he's still interested. Mooresville hired him, the worst job they have in Public Works Department, $39,000 starting out. And I said, well, hey, will you come and talk to us? No. They're gonna promote him within 90 days, and he's gonna be making $42,000. Already been told. No. Okay. I mean, that's his plan already in the town of Mooresville. So when you got stuff like that happening, it costs us in government to do business. And I can understand why this company may have had to change what their rates are. And I'm just being brutally honest. As Gary has told us hundreds of times, I've got to tell you in a public meeting. Don't look at me that way, Jerry.
Who's to say Benfield sanitation don't go up with the
Well,
price of
that's
gas?
exactly what I'm thinking as well, at some point. I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't.
What-
And
Yeah.
the cost.
That
You're talking
garbage
about
truck makes a lot
sanitation.
more in
Yeah.
gas now.
We did receive a letter from Benfield, and they said, well, no, slightly good news. Slightly good news. They said they were going up on other people, but not us yet.
Yes.
Do we have a contract with them?
Get ready.
No, it's annual.
But they are charging,
So we're on the hook, Energy United, for 6 more years. What was that, 10-year contract?
Energy United?
Yeah.
Yes, but that contract can change every 6 months. And so we can get surcharged even with Benfield. And some of the companies we're doing business with have started, even though you've got a contract, and I'm sure the mayor can tell you with his full-time business, these surcharges are real. So much so that with Public Works, we're contemplating altering schedules to be 4 10-hour days to rotate just because of the cost factor. A lot of employers are doing that as well. We can't shut town hall down, so we can't do that with all of our employees, but several governments are putting that out, that they're trying to do that as cost savings as well. But you're still getting 40 hours work, but
There's an article in that League magazine that y'all received, talking about Public Works, they can't find employees for Public Works. People don't want that position anymore either.
We're not gonna talk about that.
I mean, the unfortunate thing is, tonight, or today, we really can't make these decisions right now. I think this would be more for it's gonna be a lot longer now than I think we were anticipating. Our budget,
Yeah.
Discussion, yeah.
Yeah.
now, no disrespect, all we're really doing is, we're doing the right thing right now,
Yeah.
but we can't really make any decisions right now tonight.
What I like about it is we're giving the manager and Justin.
Right, no, I
you know,
like
our
it.
thinking so that they can kind of come up with options.
And what they told us, so,
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, it's gonna require, council to continue to think about
Unfortunately,
ways
hours.
to be able to help staff in thinking about this before we make a full decision, full disclosure, but again, I appreciate, Mr. White and the staff, Justin, at least bringing this to us and saying, hey, and this is not the first time, so they've already brought it once, so we're hearing it multiple times, so we know we're operating in the red here, and we need to figure out how to stop the bleeding at some point, but at least curb it to a certain extent, and you know, we need to think about it holistically when we have to make those decisions during the budget period. Yeah, thank you.
With food going up about 13 to 14%, I think over the past year, or been projected, being in your business, I'm sure that's a headache, trying to recoup costs on that.
I started a garden, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry. I love my mayor pro tem.
Yeah, our candy budget's going
I'm gonna see a tip jar right here at Peck's, you know. Candy here, a tip jar there.
Y'all do notice they put the big bowl over there and the small one over here.
Through tough times, 2 pieces per man.
You see how much I'm enjoying this when I start paying for it.
Glad you threw yours away.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
I got
yeah,
off
yeah.
track, Mr. Mayor.
Destroy the evidence.
No worries. All right, what else you got?
That's it, except Gary's ready to get his part on.
All right. So is there a motion to go into closed session?
If I may, while we're public, I'll just report, Lynn and I went to court today on the C2C Superior Court appeal on Wagner Street, and the court affirmed your decision.
Awesome.
So,
Thank you. Appreciate it.
at the end of that, or?
Well, they can appeal to the North Carolina Court of Appeals, and they can also, under the ordinance, they can come back in 7 months and reapply for the rezone.
Oh, okay.
Not as dumb as I thought we were, I guess.
Gary, is there a transcript or something of that we can take a look at, or will there be?
I can request it, we'll have to pay for it. It was a pretty brief hearing. Lynn almost got held in contempt, but other than that, it was really, we did it on our briefs and a few arguments to the judge. She asked us a few questions and it was over.
Were you sneezing? Is that what it was?
Yeah, that's what I was doing.
Liz, you're not held in contempt down here, just for your sake.
Can y'all imagine Lynn being in
Pretty much
contempt?
his brief that I sent y'all, although I did modify that a little bit some more. And then in his brief, I can send you a copy
Yeah,
of his
if you
brief.
send me his, yeah, and the one you've modified, that'd be great.
Okay.
All right. Thank you both for doing that. Anything else? Okay. I get a motion to go into closed session.
So move.
Is there a second?
second.
Motion to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143, 318, 11A3. To consult with an attorney. Who do we need